All right, Brooklyn. How many are from Brooklyn? Nice, good, about half. And everybody else traveled from outside of Brooklyn just to come see Derek? Awesome, I know we got somebody from Jersey. Where are you guys from? Shout it out. Harlem. Manhattan, New Hampshire. You probably came the longest way. Rhode Island? Oh, Long Island. All right, that's almost as far as New Hampshire, so. Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I'm Danny Panzella. I am here. I'm a native New Yorker. Me and my wife, we live here in Brooklyn, just a few blocks away from the park, and we are so excited to get to host Eric and Miriam and Ramiro as they came to New York City. We love when they visit us here. And, you know, I've been friends and co-activists with Derek for a long time, more than 10 years. And I was there when the Freedom Cell idea was birthed. And it is so exciting, and I'm proud. I'm really proud of Derek and John for the hard work that they put in over the years to grow this to where it is now. When we first started the Freedom Cell website, there was nobody else in Brooklyn. I was the only one. And now there's a good amount of people. I mean, I'd like to see it grow more, and it will continue to grow more, especially as, you know, hopefully we'll have more events and continue to grow it. I think now that a lot of this kind of tyranny is coming down, a lot more people are waking up in record numbers. And so I think we'll have a lot more people wanting to come to groups like this, even in the city. So without further ado, I want to introduce Miriam Gomez. She's going to be guiding us in a meditation before we get started so we can get centered and into a good place to hear the message.
Thank you. Give it up to Danny and Vanessa for setting this whole thing up, welcoming us into their home, being our awesome friends. And thank you guys for showing up. Can y'all hear me? Yeah? Okay. It sounds weird. Okay. So go ahead and take a deep breath. Deep breath deep into your belly. Hold it there for a second. Then exhale it out. You know, in New York, where I don't live, obviously, I moved to Mexico, to a little city, about 600,000 people. And mandates that are out here don't exist out there. You know? I mean, for one, Mexico is kind of behind on technology, so I feel like a lot of these things are going to roll out later than most cities in the U.S. Or most countries around the world. But I don't accept the thought that it's not going to roll out in Mexico. I think this is a collective effort to develop Agenda 2030 all around the world. So I'm not letting myself get to be in that place that accepts like that, oh, Mexico is a free place, we're gonna come here, or any part of the world, right? And I feel like I do myself a service in that way because it makes me feel like I need to be taking action each and every day to work towards, okay, if we know what's coming, okay, what can I do for myself and my family to make sure that we're capable? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? So? Okay. Let me know if this is so much better. This is good? No? Okay. So, yeah, to make sure that my family and my community has their needs met, their immediate needs met in that situation, and that from what we're still enjoying life. This past year and a half, I started noticing that I personally started getting depressed with everything that was going on and knowing what was going to be required of me to get to the point where Derek and I want to be in the state of the world right now. And That was me being the deer in the headlights, honestly. You know what I mean? You know what's coming, you see what's coming, and then you just kind of stuck. It's like, holy this is what's coming. Holy smoke. And you're just not doing anything about it. I don't know what's worse, honestly, being the deer in the headlights, or and knowing what's coming, not doing anything about it, or just being somebody else out there in the world that's just soaking in the mainstream and being traumatized by the narrative and creating it and being a part of it, you know? Um, so I noticed in the past year and a half that a lot of people are getting sick, whatever you call COVID, whatever you believe about COVID. I got sick, friends and family got sick. I can't like pinpoint, oh, that was COVID, you know? They took a PCR test and it came out positive. I can't say that, but I can say I got sick, we got sick, and it was pretty harsh, kind of like the flu. Um, got bone aches like no other, fevers, vomiting, like all the things, right? Now, what was most surprising to me was that I had friends and family that were neighbors that were sick for a whole month like that. I mean, this is a pain that I don't wish on anybody. You know, how many of you got sick? Have gotten sick with whatever's going around? Okay. You know the aching bone pain. I don't wish that on anybody. I felt like a 90-year-old, like or 150-year-old, like dying. Like just, I couldn't move. You know, like any movement was just debilitating. And so I wondered to myself, like, wow, it was just so surprising to learn that somebody allowed that to happen to them or allowed them to be in that state for a whole month, you know? Healthy people, I'm not talking about like somebody with cancer, I'm not talking about somebody with like an immune, like their immune system's compromised. I'm talking about like, you know, any ordinary person out there. And I'm wondering, like, do we, and I started having these conversations with my friends and my family and my neighbors, do you know what you can do for yourself and your family so that you don't get sick like that, you know, or if you do, that you can shorten the span of it, right? Um, Instead, I'm seeing people get sick and they're like, wow, that's terrible. Now I really need to be afraid of this virus. Now I really need to be afraid of what's going on, and I really need to be listening to the news because I don't want that to happen again. No, 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 no. The news are only going to stray you um, to learn that the power is outside of yourself, that you have no control, and that we have the remedy, and you need to take this remedy for your own well-being, and that's your safety. No, the truth is we have the power inside of us if we take charge and responsibility to take care of our own health and to heal ourselves. Do you all agree with that? I mean, we have all the tools necessary to take good care of ourselves, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. From herbal remedies to sleep, to drinking water, to making sure, bringing in tools like meditation, yoga, exercise, rest, massage, taking a nice long bath to calm your nervous system, just relax. All of these things play a role, from very small to very big. I mean, sleep each and every day, you guys know. I mean, I'm probably speaking to the choir right here, right? But is that how you say that? I don't even know if I used that right, but you know, sleep. You guys probably know this. When we're sleeping and getting good restful sleep, our brain goes to a certain state that then our body is now healing in that state. Literally, taking time to get rid of toxins, to get rid of damage, and heal and replenish. And a lot of us, at least the people that I was talking to, we look at our habits and they're literally setting us up to get sick and get sick for a long time and be down for a long time, you know? So I ask you, my friends, today, if you are somebody that knows how to take good care of yourself, you know about herbs, you know about just the basics. I mean, these things are so basic. Sleep and drinking water and incorporating good, healthy, organic veggies, no matter what diet you're on. Bringing in the supplements, especially during winter time, right? Making your own like tinctures or making your own herbal teas or decoctions. Some stuff is just super basic. And if you are somebody who has been practicing these things for a while and you know how to take good care of yourself, I ask you to please become a teacher for your friends, your family, and your community. Because the more people that feel empowered, the more people that feel like, oh, winter's coming, I got this, no more cold, no more flu in our house. That, you know, that's not going to happen anymore in our houses. People that understand, like, oh, this might sound like more on the woo side, but like literally connecting to each and every cell of your body and letting your body know, like, hey, there's something here that's like a virus, a bacteria, whatever. And we literally have the intelligence of either running in each and every cell of our body, of consciousness, of God, of creator, of spirit, the divine, whatever your connection is, to heal, to get rid of it and be done with it. Does that make sense? So please, I ask you to find the tools, or if you already have those tools, share them with people, share them with your friends, share them with your family, share them with random people in the streets that you get to connect with. That human connection, honestly, is what's going to keep a lot of us sane in the coming days, in the coming years, with everything that we see rolling out. And that heart to heart is what's really going to help us get to understand each other, understand each other. And in that space, we can help each other. We can help each other heal. I think somebody else earlier was talking about the root of all these problems that are going on in the world, right? Let's help each other get to the root of those issues. And let's help each other understand that we are empowered. We hold that power to take good care of ourselves, to heal our bodies, to heal our minds, to heal our traumas from the past. And we don't need governments to take care of our health for us. We don't need corporations to take care of our health for us or to tell us what's best for us. You know? They don't know what's best for us. We know what's best for us. Right? So that's why I bring in meditation. Meditation is definitely one of those tools that I absolutely love, and it helps us in all layers of our being. Our physical bodies, it helps us help our mental, which we know in the last year and a half, mental health just plunked. Like it was so bad for a lot of people for many reasons. And none of the mainstream media is talking about that. And so definitely paying attention to our mental health is something that I'm encouraging a lot of people to do right now, and for their communities. So meditation helps us become more reflective and more aware of our inner thoughts, our inner emotions, our inner world in general. And I will say this, do seek professional help when you need it. Please do. There's an ever-growing network, an ever-growing community of freedom-minded folks, of people who are aligned with freedom of choice and are losing their jobs and are psychiatrists, are doctors, are healers of all sorts. And we need to reach out to our community because they now need our support and we need their support too. So yeah, so meditation helps with the mental, it helps with the emotional, and it helps with the spiritual connection. So whatever your connection is, whether God, Creator, Jesus, the divine source, spirit, I encourage you more than ever to continue to work on that connection for yourself. In the times that we're living and in the times that are coming, I do believe that we need to find our center, that space within us where no matter what's going on in the outside world, we feel connected, we feel grounded, we feel clear in our minds, we can make clear decisions, and we feel supported. And so meditation can help us with that, and that's why I would love to guide us in a meditation today. If you're new to meditation, awesome. I will be guiding like an intro to meditation, and if you have any questions afterwards about any meditation practice, please come and talk to me, I would be happy to talk to you. Um, and also, I invite you, if this is something that you like or you're interested in, I'm doing a 21-day meditation challenge with people. I felt like I needed to just do a 21-day meditation challenge for myself. And then during the tour, I'm seeing more and more people, and they're telling me like, oh, I wish I could get back into meditation. You know, I need to do it more. I need to do it more. I was like, okay, so join me on that, right? So if that's something that you'd like to do, awesome. I will get you connected to the meditation group, and we do a live stream every Thursday. I'm going to go ahead and get comfortable with you. Now, for somebody who's new to meditation and maybe doesn't understand it, and maybe thinks like, why am I going to sit and do absolutely nothing with myself when I need to take action? When I need to be doing something for the world, or for myself, or my community. Well, I say to you, maybe it's because meditation helps us to come back to our breath and be reflective upon the internal world, like I said. So in that space, we can maybe see more clearly what is needed of us, and not and see more clearly when we're just moving with the current, whatever is whatever's happening around us. So we're being more intentional. So if anything, it just helps you just be more at peace and more present with your connections, with your relationships, with the people that you're talking to each and every day, right? I think the practical stuff that you get out of meditation or you get out of your practices is what's necessary. So go ahead and get comfortable. I like to cross my legs. If that feels comfortable to you, go ahead. You're welcome to lay down or lay your feet out in front of you. Go ahead and make sure that your back is nice and straight. We're not forcing it. We're not curving our back. Nice and straight, maybe tuck in the belly. And your hands can go on your lap, palms up or down. Maybe top of your feet right here. You can go ahead and close your eyes if you like, or if you keep them open. Maybe focus on a point 2-3 feet in front of you, something that's not moving. You know, I think it's perfect that we're out here outdoors right now with all the sounds around us. This is how we can better help ourselves, better train ourselves to listen inwards, go internal when there's all this noise around us, when there's so much happening around us. So we can always train ourselves to bring our focus internally to our bodies, to our breath. Go ahead and take a deep breath in through your nose, filling up your belly. And exhale, you can sigh it out. A few more deep breaths like that. And with your exhales, allow your body to relax. Feel your body sinking in a little bit more into the ground. And then whenever you're ready, you can allow your breath to go on its natural rhythm. Most of the days we're breathing and we're not even thinking about it. It's a beautiful gift that keeps us alive. And right now, we're just bringing our focus to it. So checking until using your imagination to follow your breath, maybe seeing the oxygen as it flows in through your nose, feeling the sensations of your belly inflates with the air, and as it comes down, the air goes back up and out through your nose. We're going to take a moment and bring that awareness to our ears. Allow yourself to take in all of the sounds around you. We're not labeling the sounds, we're not criticizing the sounds, we're not criticizing ourselves for listening. We're simply taking in the sounds, allowing our ears to do what they do, just being present. Whenever you're ready, come back to your breath. Following our breath as we inhale the oxygen, as it fills up our lungs and our belly, as it goes back up and out through our nose. Go ahead and check in with our bodies. Sure that we feel relaxed even more. And sometimes we tend to feel tension in different parts of our bodies. So checking in with our face, if there's any tension in between your eyebrows and your eyes, the way that your eyes are resting. Maybe you feel the tension in your cheekbones or your jaw. Take a nice deep breath. On your exhale, allow everything to just drop. Maybe find a comfortable position for your jaw, your mouth. And soften your gaze, soften the space between your eyebrows, soften your cheeks, and feel more relaxed. Perhaps you feel more tension in your neck or your shoulders. And to release that tension, you can simply breathe deeply, exhale, and relax. And if you feel like you need a little bit more of a release, you can move with your breath. Maybe exhale and tilt your head to one side. Slow, gentle movement. You can tilt your head forward and back, massaging your neck. Do whatever feels good to you. And then the other side, being gentle. And exhale deeply and step back to your position. Same with your shoulders. You can inhale and shrug them up nice and tight, or maybe do some circles for shoulders. And whenever you're ready, exhale and let them drop back. Make sure that your chest is still nice and open. Your back is straight. Feel the support underneath you from the earth. Feel yourself very well rooted. And we come back to our breath. Following our breath as we inhale and exhale. And while you're paying attention to your breath, if you find yourself running with your thoughts, that's okay. There's no need to be critical about it, judgmental. If there were any important thoughts in there, they will come back to you at a better time. When we're in our meditation practice, we simply come back to our breath in that moment, go back to that rhythm, that natural rhythm of the breath. Continue to find a deeper relaxation space for ourselves. I hope you feel more focused. Um, I hope you always know that you have all the tools inside you that you ever need to overcome your battles. Know that you can always find the courage inside you to move past your fears, your insecurities, your doubts, and accomplish all of your goals. Your goal is to find the people that you want to build community with. You will find them. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. And whenever you're ready to come out of your meditation, you can wiggle your toes, your fingers, move your body around a little bit. Stretch. Shake a tail feather. And get ready for some really good information. Thank you guys again. If you're interested in the 21-day meditation challenge, let me know, and I'll add you to the Telegram group, or I'll share the Jitsi link with you to get the live stream. Thank you guys. Up next is Vanessa.
Thank you. Meditation has been a tool that Vanessa and I have used a lot in the last couple of years, even pre-pandemic, to get control of our stress levels. Right? There's, even if you don't believe in the woo-woo of spiritual, and maintain that. So I just want to briefly introduce who we are and what we do. My name is Danny Panzella Velez. This is my wife, Vanessa Velez Panzella. And we are from sovereignlove.nyc. We have a podcast on the Conscious Resistance Network called Sovereign Love Stream. It is a relationships, sex, and psychedelic podcast. So we talk about how we were in a completely toxic relationship and how we use different healing modalities, including meditation, but also including nonviolent communication, psychedelics like psilocybin mushrooms and ayahuasca, among many others. And we're just sharing our stories. We're not like gurus or relationship coaches per se. We're just sharing our experiences, how we were able to heal ourselves and find balance within ourselves and in our relationship, and just kind of share those stories with people. And it seems to have really resonated. So we were featured on the Today Show last year, and it went so viral that we said, "Oh well, I guess people like this content. Let's start a podcast." And it went, it's been really successful. So if you're interested in that, check us out. And introduce what we're going to talk about.
Hi everybody, I'm Vanessa. Me. So today we're talking about spiritual sovereignty, and we wanted to bring in, we're kind of in this holistic space. We're talking about body sovereignty, we're talking about mindfulness, So when we're discussing spiritual sovereignty, what we're really talking about is owning your own power. So a lot of us want sovereignty and we are ready to fight for it, we're ready to stand up for it. And what we really want to share with you all is how we're in the process of embodying our sovereignty through our spiritual practices. And for us, that means as a society, we have so many different sources coming into us. We have media, we have government, we have our parents, we have just society in general telling us what to do, what not to do, what to eat, what not to eat. You know, like one day gluten is bad, another day you need gluten. One day meat is bad, another day meat is is essential for survival. So what ends up happening is we start losing touch with our own intuition, with our we know what we need. Our bodies are very intelligent beings. We have the gut brain, which is, you know, scientifically proven to be highly superior. So we know what we need, and we are so out of touch with that at times that we are easily swayed in any direction. Whether you're afraid of COVID or you're afraid of the government, either way, when you're operating from a place of fear, you're not in your sovereignty. And in order to come back to that, we do need mindfulness practices. We need ways in which we kind of connect to ourselves, so we can tap back into that intuition, that power that we already embody. We're just kind of out of touch with it. We're out of touch with listening to what we really want. Sometimes we do things that we don't feel comfortable with, and we just accept that that's life. I worked for many years, a 9 to 5 job, super stressed out, super unhappy. I would come home every night, have wine or alcohol, whatever it was, to numb down the uncomfortableness of the life that I was living. And that was another way of numbing my own intuition. My body was telling me, you're not happy. I was sick all the time. I was depressed. I was anxious. I was operating on 2, 3 hours of sleep because I had horrible insomnia. And I was so out of touch. My body was screaming at me, this is not good for you. This is not the life for you. And I didn't know how to accept it because society says if you have a 9 to 5 job that pays you a great salary, you've got it made. What are you so miserable about? And the more I started paying attention to myself, to my body, to my intuition, the happier I became. And it's, you know, sometimes we feel a little bit guilty saying this, but last year was one of the best years of our lives. And we didn't have the news on 24/7. We weren't listening to see in what ways COVID was out to get us or in what ways the government was out to get us. We were just enjoying the peace. Everything went silent. I mean, this is New York City. You guys are here listening to how loud everything is out here. But for once, it was quiet. And once it got quiet, it got really interesting for us because we started listening to ourselves. We started listening to what made us happy, what brought us joy, and we experienced the best year of our lives, I think. So we want to kind of share today how we kind of got on that path and some tips that are helpful to us that might be helpful to you. So I'm going to pass it on to you.
You know, I mentioned before that me and Derek have been doing activism for over 10 years. And for a long time in my activist career, I was really angry. And I was angry at what tyranny was coming down the line. I mean, you know, 10 years ago, we were talking about a lot of this stuff that's just now finally being implemented with COVID as the pretext. But for a long time, I was really angry. And that anger was not helping me in my relationship, it was not helping me in my heart. So I think as activists, we have to be really careful to care for ourselves first before thinking we can save the world. Before we think we can wake everybody up and save everybody else, we really have to focus on ourselves first. It's the cliche, which is true, of putting your mask on, your oxygen mask on first before you help someone else. So for me, I had to do a lot of internal work to recognize that it's kind of like the serendipity prayer. Give me the strength to change the things that I can, but also to accept the things that I can't change and not allow the anger over those things to consume me. Because we can be, you can be free physically, right? You can be an agorist and live off the grid, you can move to the woods, but if you're not free in here because while you're in the woods, you're looking at Facebook and all the terrible news and you're angry about it, you're not really free. So we love to encourage people to seek freedom first from inside so that you can be at peace. And then you can approach the challenges that come with government tyranny or corporate tyranny with the confidence and the strength of I'm at peace and I know what I'm going to do. I know whether or not I want to take the vaccine or not take the vaccine. And I really don't even have much of an opinion about whether or not people should take the vaccine or not. I think it's a personal decision, and I'm perfectly fine with people who choose to get it, and I'm perfectly fine with people who choose not to. So it's not so much a matter of what decisions you're making as if you are at peace with those decisions. There may be people that want to take the vaccine, and the one caution I would say is don't take it if you're nervous about taking it, because I think you may manifest like bad symptoms, side effects. If you really believe you're going to get it and you're just doing it out of fear and you're out of balance, you may manifest exactly what you're afraid of. It's an unfortunate not side effect, but principle of the law of attraction, which I believe in, whether you want to call it karma or what. I have to refer to my notes because if not, we'll be up here for hours. And Eric, make sure you let us know when the time's running out. So you don't want to react as a victim, right? I'm a victim to the circumstances of the government around me, what restrictions are being put in place, what's being forced on me. I manifest my own reality. I'm not a victim to anything. I may have to come up with creative solutions to deal with certain things. Right now in Brooklyn, we're not vaccinated. We're not allowed in restaurants. We're not allowed in theaters. I never went to the gym anyway, so that doesn't affect my life. But, so we have to do creative things. We have to eat outside for now, which is
Make our own food.
or make our own food, which is cheaper and healthier. We know what we're putting into our bodies. So that's like a proactive way that I'm not going to be a victim and just sit at home and cry, oh, I'm not allowed, government won't allow me in restaurants.
Or find a way.
Today we had a delicious meal that Miriam and Ramiro cooked for us, and it was beautiful, very clean, organic food, and it was delicious. And we really can't, I mean, there are some places you can get that around here, but want to take it?
And kind of speaking to the reality that we want to create. We live in New York, right? And if you listen to the news, I mean, we were laughing at the fact that people were like, how are you still living in New York? It's horrible there. It's chaos. The crime is horrible. People can't go out in the streets anymore. And we were hanging out at the park all day, every day last year. We had, like I said, we had a fantastic year. We got to take walks in the park. We were already homeschooling, so our schooling situation didn't change. We just experienced so much joy. We didn't fight with anybody. Nobody fought with us. We walked pretty much maskless anywhere, and nobody stops us to say, hey, why aren't you wearing a mask? Or, I'm sure there might be people that may step away from us, and that's okay. If they don't feel comfortable with us, that's not a problem. It doesn't affect me. It doesn't affect my decision because I'm at peace with the decision that I've made. And
so we don't take it personally when someone else wants to stay 6 feet away. That's fine. That's your
we have no problem again respecting anybody's decisions. But again, all of that comes from that peace within. And Danny does work in people's homes, and he's watched people sitting there with the news on for hours and hours and hours. And yeah, if you're sitting there listening to the news for hours and hours and hours, you're gonna get freaked out. There's no doubt about it. And so it's very important to look at our habits. How do you start the day? So for us, we start the day in a ritual form. Whether it's drinking a glass of water, whether it's making our coffee, although we are keeping our coffee habit. We're switching to cacao in the morning. But whatever it is, our first drink of the morning is done in ritual. We set intentions for the day. It's a ceremony. We start each day as a ceremony. And when you start each day as a ceremony, you have no choice but to face each person that you encounter in a respectful way, right? Because now you're in ceremony. I'm in ceremony today, so I cannot be offensive to someone else. And at the same time, I don't allow them to hurt me because I'm protected at all times, because I'm in a space of peace, I'm in a space of love, I'm in a space of compassion. If I walk into a store without a mask, with an air of defiance, with like ready to fight whoever tells me something, it's going to show on my face. It's going to show in my body language, and people are going to feel it. And what are they going to do? They're going to react the way I'm expecting them to react. But if I walk into a store maskless, like nothing happened, just a normal day at the store, I'm buying my groceries, and I smile at the person in front of me, half the time, I don't think they even realize I'm not wearing a mask. They're just like, wow, she smiled at me. And they'll smile back through their mask. You can just kind of see by the eye and then the facial expressions that they are smiling back. And that's it. That's as far as the interaction goes. And sometimes people start realizing, oh, it's safe, it's okay, nothing's going on. And sometimes that leads to conversations. Oh my God, how have you been holding up in the pandemic? Oh, well, we've had the best year of our lives. How is that? And so, we can open up conversations from this place of empowerment and not from this place of trying to preach to people that the world is coming to an end and we have to do everything in our power to stop it, because that adds to the panic, that adds to the fear. And when we make decisions out of fear, we start making irrational decisions. We start making decisions that do not have compassion for our neighbor, for our friends and family. And the truth is, the more you start speaking up from a place of joy, the more people are willing to say, oh yeah, I feel the same way. If you come in here like the government's trying to do this, and that, sometimes people are going to be like, yeah, well, I'm not out here for conspiracy theories, so I'm not going to, I'm just going to stay shut.
I'm not QAnon.
Exactly.
Apparently, anybody that questions the government now must be QAnon or a Trump supporter.
But
Very strange.
But if you're coming from a place of, yeah, I just take care of myself, I eat healthy, I take my vitamins, I, wash my hands, I have basic hygiene, the majority of people are like, yeah, me too, and there's no reason to be afraid. And then it starts to spread a little bit easier. We're not meeting resistance that much. And remember, what you resist persists. So the more that we're in resistance with people, the more that we want to argue with people, the more likely they're going to fight back and stand in their choices, regardless of how they feel.
They're going to become defensive and want to defend their position rather than be open and listen to whatever message they're sharing. That actually brings up another really great point. I wanted to say two things. One about starting the day with gratitude. Gratitude is a great way it's an easy way to get into a good mood and start your day that way. So just, what are you thankful for? I'm thankful that I wake up every day next to this room. So I can literally just roll over and be thankful immediately. But even in the midst of the pandemic, for a year, there were a lot less cars on the road, and that brown haze over New York City started to dissipate. The sky was blue again. I'm grateful for that. I don't want to stop anybody's freedom from driving. I don't want environmental authoritarianism. But at the same time, I can appreciate that we got a little break from the pollution, right? So you can find, even in things that may not seem like a good thing at first, you may be able to find things within that you can be grateful for. I'm grateful for the government tyranny because it's waking so many people up. It's so obvious at this point. The corporate media and the CDC just contradict themselves and each other constantly. They say follow the science, and then they act like if you're vaccinated, you can't spread it to anybody. The science says you can. So what are you talking about? I see people walking around with shirts, I got vaccinated, you're welcome. Well, it doesn't help me. It's going to suppress your symptoms if it works, hopefully, and I pray that it does for you. But it's not helping me. You can still spread it to me. So what do you like, the arrogance? I'm going to get on a rant. I don't like that. Gratitude. So, find the gratitude. But I am grateful that all of this hypocrisy is now so obvious that a lot of people are really starting to see it and question things. And you know what? It's not always the most vocal people. I'm in my neighborhood group, and everybody hates me, except for I have a few people that agree with me. They won't agree with me in public, but they'll send me a message once in a while privately. I saw what you said there. I really agree. But like, if I post something that dares question mask or vaccine policy, any of the authoritarianism, they all pile on top of me. And they're just the loudest voices. I don't believe that they're really representative, the people on social media. I don't believe that they're really representative because we still have, I feel like there's enough resistance. Look, Southwest Airlines just decided they're not going to do a vaccine mandate. The media was saying for days, oh, it's a conspiracy theory that the pilots are protesting vaccines. Well, they canceled thousands of flights due to weather. No other airline canceled the flights. But now all of a sudden they announced, well, we're not going to do a vaccine mandate. I'm sure that has nothing to do with the fact that the pilots didn't show up for work and they had to ground 1,000 flights, right? So I'm grateful for that aspect of things getting worse. So if we can look at it that way, find that silver lining, it's a little bit easier. And then we can be, oh, cool. So yeah, who of my friends has the potential to wake up? Who was not into it before, not open before, but now start listening to the things they're saying. And you may find the openings. Oh, can I give you some more information about that? All right. I am complete.
I think I am too. Just going back to what we started off with, this all starts from within. It's important to do our work, to look at where our fears are, to look at where our biases are, so that we are making empowered decisions and not decisions out of fear, not decisions where we want to control others. Even in trying to help others wake up is a mechanism of control. Sometimes we have to let people be on their path, and that's okay. Maybe they're meant to be that way. Maybe they're meant to go through whatever it is that they're going to go through. And we can just sit back and do our own thing and be there for them when they're ready to wake up. And we can only do that if we've taken care of ourselves, like Danny said at the beginning. So that's our message. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening.
All right, next up, Ramiro Romani. Join us on the stage, please. Ramiro is the TCRN technology expert. So he's going to talk to us a little bit about how to avoid the pitfalls of technology and surveillance.
And look at the moon, guys.
Oh, it's a full moon tonight, too.
Yeah, beautiful.
It's a end of the cycle, end of the moon cycle, end of the spiritual cycle, end of a lot of cycles, and that's what I'd like to discuss today. Hey, I just want to make sure everyone here, is this better for the people sitting over this way? Kind of in the middle? A little bit?
Just make sure you project.
Yeah. Scream. So yeah, I'm Ramiro Romani, friends of Derek, Miriam, Amy, Vanessa, and we work on a lot of different projects together, but the most popular is, of course, Freedom Cells from freedomcells.org. Has anyone been on that site? Well, here's something special about Freedom Cells. We've been going around the nation across the East Coast, and through Freedom Cells, we've found strangers who have taken us into their homes like we're family members. And it's just, every time I'm sitting with them and, talking to them and getting to know them, I just realize that we have so much family anywhere. And what brought us together was the hope that we could come together and be free and support each other and find ways to save the world. So I think that's what Freedom Cells is, a way for you to take part in saving the world. How many of y'all have been researching on the internet? Or like crazy, going down rabbit holes and crazy stuff. Isn't it kind of funny, like, when you're researching stuff and then you go back on mainstream platforms, they try and make it seem like you're the weird one, or like no one thinks that way, or you're stupid. But then you come out to events like these and see, no, you're not alone at all. There's other people who are awake. And so, unfortunately, these are destructive technologies that are keeping us apart. But as I just mentioned, Freedom Cells, there's also constructive technologies. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today, is how does technology fit into our picture of saving the world? I think it takes courage to even come out to things like these nowadays. And it's lovely that we're not alone in New York City. I used to live in New York City, in East Village, and I moved away after the pandemic started in March. And it was because I went to Trader Joe's and everything was gone. Like nothing except a can of beans. I was looking at, all right, which beans do I want here? And I didn't feel very secure. But that was just me. There's so much beautiful things happening in the city, and I just love the fact you can go out and find anything and anyone. And what ended up happening was I went back, but now I'm back and I see that nothing has really changed, that people are still awake and going outside and enjoying their lives. And I think now we have a really big opportunity to spread this message because we're seeing mass awareness, although it doesn't seem like it when you look at our news networks. If you're plugged into Telegram at all, you might have seen the massive protests happening in Europe, Italy, France. People are tired of this shit. And we're at the stage where people are aware. And even a greater amount of New Yorkers are aware. Did any of y'all attend the protests in Times Square with RFK? That's so fucking awesome. I wish I could have gotten plugged into that. Yeah, shout out to y'all. And so we're reaching this place where people are aware. And now, instead of walking around in the streets holding signs, even though, that's an important part of this, is we actually need to put our heads together and work on systems that will save us. Because we can't continue to count on the government and these corporations and hospitals, pharmaceuticals, to try and solve our problems. They're not doing it. We have to take our own responsibility. We have to heal ourselves. We have to feed ourselves. We have to connect our own way. So, anyways, back to technology. So how can technology help do this? Well, the first thing you need to start with is security. And security is important because you want to make sure whatever plans you make for yourself, whether you start your own organization or whether you start a co-op or a farm, you want that to continue for a long period of time. You don't want to say, hey, you can't grow your vegetables in this section of Central Park. That's not allowed. No harvesting. You don't want to be told that, hey, you can't collect your own rainwater as somebody owns the sky other than Mother Nature. And as more of these unjust laws continue to become a thing that get enforced, we have to protect ourselves and protect the way we communicate with each other. So that is why I'm going around the country and I'm saying, fuck Windows, fuck Mac OS. Apologies if any of y'all use it, but both of those operating systems are spying on me. Mac OS, it'll send a unique identifier for any time you open up an application on your computer along with your IP address, right? So that uniquely identifies you on the network. And this isn't even encrypted, so anyone, your internet service provider, they see what websites you're visiting. And that isn't a good thing when you're allowing them to see what you're planning and what you're working on. I believe that your ideas are yours and should be yours, and I feel as if that companies have taken advantage of our lack of consent or kind of manipulated us into feeding into their systems. And they use it to monetize us, they use it to show us ads, but they're also going to use it to control us. Right? Derek can tell you more about that. The massive purge where the massive anti-media were completely stripped off Facebook and YouTube. And so our voices are being silenced, and this is not a stretch when I think that the operating systems themselves, one day we could easily get locked out of our computers. Both Windows and Mac have the ability to remotely wipe your computer. Windows since 4 Windows 7, Mac OS as well. And I don't want that to happen because I think computers are useful tools and we're going to use them. We're going to use them to keep journals. We're going to use them to stay in contact with each other, right? What if everyone today here created a spreadsheet with everyone's email and phone number, and now you don't just have one for themselves, you have a ton for themselves. And that guys can come together and work together and you have that between them. Now, this is not something you want taken away from you, right? And if you were to use something like Google Drive and it eventually goes against their 1,000-page terms of service, they take that away from you, that is a vulnerability, right? So information is power. We're in an information war, and our data is ours, and we can use it to benefit us. So my main recommendation for people is to remove Windows or Mac OS from their computer and replace it with Linux. Has anyone heard of Linux, or has anyone used it? Wow, you guys are all about it. Well, of course, in the hip city. And for those of y'all who haven't used it, please reach out to these folks. It's really easy. It takes less than 2 hours to completely replace your operating system with one that won't force updates on you. It's completely free, it's customizable, and it's never been easier to use it, right? You don't have to be like elite hacker to do it. And of course, like I educate people on how to use Linux effectively. I have a blog called kickbackourtech.org, and our first article was about raising awareness, right? Me talking shit about Windows and that, but also showing people how to use Linux. So if you go on there, you can find the article installing Linux from scratch. And you can get that done in 2 hours tonight, and that is a massive change, a massive step in the right direction. The other things that we need to do is we see that we need to protect the computers, we need to protect the phones, we'll talk about that, but in the middle somewhere, we have to reach more people. We cannot do this alone. These creative systems need more people to exchange of ideas, and for us to trade our goods, trade our specialization, to trade our piece of the puzzle, whatever we're interested in. And so we all must take on the responsibility. What do we want to be, right? And I'm not saying in like a academic sense, like, oh, what do you want to go study and get this degree? You don't need a fucking piece of paper to change the world. And so I'm a big advocate of using the internet to do whatever you want. And you can do that by research and stuff, right? There's books out there on everything. Now, personally, I think society will shift from, absolute luxury. We're kind of at the height of it right now, and we're going to shift to taking care of our most basic needs. And so for that reason, I downloaded a bunch of survival books, around 200 gigabytes of books. It's a few tens of thousands of books from the 1700s to the 1900s, from anything to archery, to canning, to taking care of Jersey cows, to different types of strawberries. And I'm hoarding this knowledge. I've read a little bit of the book. I read about the archery stuff. That's cool. But not much of it, right? But I'm saving it, and I think that we should collect that information while it's free and open to us, because it's useful. And I think if you're interested in it, maybe get together with some people and research and collect these files together. And now let's start seeing in the future. Okay, well maybe if there is an internet outage or something, or there's another Carrington event and a massive EMF pulse takes out all electronics. Maybe you'll have stored this knowledge within an EMF-proof bag and a USB, and then boom, there you have it. Along with a solar panel and another laptop to charge it, you have the knowledge you need to restart humanity. At least from the 1700s to the 1900s. You're not going to learn how to make anything crazy, but you will survive, and that's the point here. And I also think that a big reason why we're unhappy is because there's a lot layered on top that we don't need. It's all bullshit. So I think that this next era of humanity, we're going to kind of strip all that back and get back to what really matters, which is the community, which is living in health, which is treating others with kindness, which is being free. And that is something that we get to live through, and I think that's really exciting, although it's scary at the same time. I think these people in the future that we're talking about, we're kind of dreaming about, are going to do things differently. They're going to do something called community computing, so maybe they won't even be connected to the internet because they might get kicked off or something. And that's not crazy at all. In Pakistan, in June of this year, anyone who wasn't unvaccinated got their cell service removed. So there's this video of the people lined up to go get their cell service after that, and the video goes on for 20 minutes. He's driving at 50 miles an hour. Cars are it's just a really long line. So this was effective. It's effective, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it is something that potentially could happen. So it's good for us to be ready and have everything we need. So community computing will look like us sharing computers out there on our piece of property together. Maybe it's in New York City, maybe it's a rooftop garden, whatever space we manage to get for ourselves. And we're going to operate privately. Maybe we won't be connecting to the internet. Maybe instead of using a traditional phone, and calling and texting people on WhatsApp and normal phone numbers, we're going to do things a little bit more securely, where we know that a private conversation is a private conversation. An intimate conversation between partners stays between them. When you talk to your family, when you make plans for yourself, you can actually be sure that no one else knows. And we're going to do that by taking care of the next big threats to our privacy, which are our mobile phones. This is another kind of educational series I did about the ways our phones track us in the different layers. And of course, it's the same players. It's the operating system, right? So there was a study done by Trinity College in Ireland, which saw that both Android and iOS send a request back to Google and Apple every 5 minutes. They get your phone number every time you insert your SIM card and take it out. They get your location every time you turn the location services on, but more than that, if you do it on an iOS device, you also get the identifiers of all the devices on your local network. So they're seeming to create a map of the world exactly where everything is. You also have to note that when you are out and about and your phone is connecting every 5 minutes, you also are plotting yourself on the map based on what radio towers you're using, right, and what you're assigned to. So there's a massive amount of information that is being collected about us that we don't really know, and they don't seem to be doing anything with it yet, but they realistically could. And we can see this by how fast vaccine passports have been rolled out on both Android and iOS, right? It's integrated, it's part of the system. And also, Apple and Google don't collaborate all the time, but one of the big projects that they collaborated on this year was the contact tracing app. Just telling how close are you to other people and seeing who's together, which could also be used to kind of track resistance, right? People's promoted freedom. So we want to keep all this private to ourselves, and the main solution that I have been working on for this past year are Google phones and private software services. The Google phones is exactly what it sounds like. It gets your Android phone on a secure operating system and strips out any requests back to Google, all that yucky stuff I was talking about that doesn't happen. That is combined with using free and open source applications, which don't have any embedded trackers on them that would spy on you. Normally, when you use apps on the App Store, it's tracking every single thing you do in there, right? That's just part of the advertising and analytics. So anytime you type in an input or an interactive post, that might be generated and sent off. So there was a study that also looked at these app trackers that I've written about, Take Back Your Tech, and it's found that from all these advertising and tracking companies, 16 out of 20 of them are owned by who? Google, the biggest technology military defense contract. So you can see it's kind of all just going into one place, although it seems like this separated ecosystem. And that's just my warning for people who want to live freely. So get Google out of the picture, get Apple out of the picture. Look into the Google phones. The operating systems are called Graphene OS. You got graphene, like the nanomaterial. Hasn't been proven to be in vaccines, by the way. And Alex OS, right? So these combined with open source applications, free and open source applications, let you use the phone in ways that you're used to without giving up all this data. And the last part of it is privacy services. And these are services that are respected for your privacy. And there's going to be a massive movement as more people see the value in this and more companies start to offer it. My company is one of the first, and we offer private software services to people. We have an email service, a VPN, which for those of you who don't know, a VPN is a virtual private network, and it encrypts your traffic so that your internet service provider, your local network, they can't see what you're browsing, at least directly that way. And that's, again, goes back to the privacy, it's important. Encrypted messaging, and so for that we found a 20-year-old technology that seems to have been left on the shelf. But secretly, it was used to build other products like Facebook messages back in the day and Google Hangouts. But it's kind of like been this unsung hero, and it turns out anyone can run it for themselves. You learn a little bit of server administration, you can run your own private chat server. And guess what? It will allow you to make phone calls without a phone number. It will allow you to make phone calls without a phone number. Now, earlier I was talking about what happens if we get removed off of self-service. Well, maybe one day in the future we don't, have SIM cards in our phones, but we go from Wi-Fi network to Wi-Fi network, and that's literally how we stay in touch with people because we're working on the things we need to survive. And so XMGP allows you to do that. You can sign up free. I have an article coming about that is going to teach you all about what it is and how to use it, how you can get it on your phone, even if you don't have to use your phone, along with all these other privacy services I've mentioned. So we need companies now more than ever that their business model is not monetizing your data, and they don't look at what you do. Or even more, that it's a trustless system, so there's no way for them to decrypt what you're sending on their systems. So XMPP is one way you can do that, because it is end-to-end encrypted. Calls are end-to-end encrypted. As soon as you hang up on the phone, there's no trace of it. All right. You see I transition between like philosophy and then like nerding out over technology, so I'm trying to balance it. Lastly, so we talked about how to build knowledge, right? How to create things for ourselves. I think creating a website, not being tied to a platform like YouTube or Facebook is incredibly important. If you want to share what you are doing to save the world, right? When you are developing your knowledge, either through books or through practice, you're sharing it with the world. How are you going to do that? Well, a lot of people nowadays are using Telegram, which is great. But you should create, right? The ways you can create are to create your own website and share with us what you're doing. Make posts about it, take pictures about it, record videos. We all have devices in our pockets that would allow us to do this, to share these things that we learn. So that is the encouragement. Because of all the propaganda and stuff that is being shoveled down our throats, millions of dollars behind it, we also need to stand up and be the content creators and thought leaders that are going to stand up to it. Because this stuff isn't going to hit the mainstream unless we really, really try. And I'm not saying that everyone is going to be the best, at what they do, but at least we're going to start the conversation, and that counts for a lot. So maybe we'll use platforms like Telegram. Maybe we'll use websites like WordPress. I'm sure there's some technologists here that maybe haven't thought of the idea, but have creative people around them and can work together. Like, so for instance, I worked on the Greater Reset with Derek Rose over there, and we brought in speakers from all around the world. And 100,000 people ended up watching the live stream with really not too much, not too much marketing behind it. And I think that just goes to show you can create your own systems, and people are looking for solutions. So be the one to raise those solutions. I believe that we can figure it out together, and each one of us has a different answer to the whole entire question. The other thing is like, digital channels is one thing, but they're definitely tightening down on that. So I think another thing that we're going to have to do, if we really want this to work, is actually go more low-tech. Maybe we need to print out stickers. Has anyone heard of the White Rose? Yes, yeah, so the White Rose is this decentralized freedom fighting organization in the UK that's spreading awareness of kind of COVID and the ineffective mandates, and getting people to share and spread this message through use of symbols and powerful messaging on stickers, sticking them around anyway. And every person that gets to see this in person, maybe it at least gets them to start thinking about it, or points them to a website, which doesn't have to be your activist, or it doesn't have to be anything like the White Rose. It can be your idea. It can be your website. It could be your Telegram channel. That we have to start. We cannot rely on social media to spread the message for us. They're going to quiet down the truth. If you're on the truth, they're going to tune the algorithm so you can't reach people. So by printing stickers, you can reach people in person. So what they recommend is the line of printers. It's called the Brother Q100 series, or the Q series, right? But it's like 200, 300, 500, 600. You can buy these thermal printers and print out lots of different stickers, stick them up around town. You go into businesses, maybe you can make a sign that says, hey, we accept people of all vaccine statuses, right? That's just an idea. And it's through ways like these that we can start gaining a following without relying on social media. And I think that's going to be really important. So I want to end with just recapping everything we talked about today, because I know it's a lot, and I would really encourage you to maybe definitely come talk to me after the event. I'm happy to tell you all about this stuff. And also get involved with the people in your community and find the technologists, right? Because maybe some of this stuff went over your head, but I think that there are some people who can act like you'll be able to research and figure it out. So everyone has their piece in this. Everyone has their part in this. So form organizations. There's a technologist there. There's a creative there. There is someone with knowledge there. And work together to create these channels. Oh, it makes it so much easier. the beauty of creation is that the individual parts, when they come together, are greater than their sums, right? So together we can be more than ourselves alone. And that's the essence of creative systems. That's the essence of technology bringing people together. That is what Freedom Cells is. It's just an abstract concept brought together by a website. People in person like you who decide to come out, decide to have the experience, and decide to change the world. So that's all I really want, and I think that technology is a great way to make that happen. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Oh.
Thank you so much, Ramiro. What a beautiful night. For those of you who are local, it's pretty chilly. We had a beautiful night for this. It's almost like it was ordained just for us. So last, but certainly not least, we have Derek Rose, the founder of the Conscious Resistance Network, the founder of the Freedom Cells Network. Derek and I have been friends for a long time. He has been a tireless advocate for liberty, and not just for the grand kind of like broad concept of freedom and liberty, but he's been a proponent of agorism, the philosophy of applying the concepts of liberty to your everyday life, to every decision that you make, and the way you live, holistically applying the concepts of anarchist philosophy to every part of your life. And I'm going to give him a little shameless plug, because this book, the Conscious Resistance Trilogy, is basically an outline of agorism and anarchist philosophy. So if you're kind of new to this community, or if you were just hanging out in the park and decided to stop and listen, and you're interested in hearing or reading more about the philosophy of anarchy and agorism, come on, check out one of these books. He also has another book called How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which covers some of the stuff Ramiro was just talking about. So without further ado, Derek Rose. Hey, what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing tonight? Is there any way I can get everybody to tighten up a little bit more so I can speak a little more personally connected with you? Can we do that? Whoever feels like it, closer. I see a lot of space right here. Hey, we appreciate you guys being here with us. Some of you are aware we've been on the road, myself and Miriam, for the last 6 weeks, traveling the United States, and Ramiro joined us the last couple weeks. We have 7 more events after this, I think. And in total, we're visiting 29 different cities. Every city we're visiting, we're doing these community action days where we are, in some cities we've planted trees, we've cleaned up parks, we've done urban farming workshops, community garden work. We've gone out to the streets to talk to people about mandates and passports. In Portland, we helped them organize their first ever protest and march against the vaccine passport. It was really beautiful. So we've been trying to travel and connect with the different communities we're visiting, not just share our message, but come connect and really, hopefully, let everybody here understand that for those who are aware of the direction things are going, which is not necessarily a direction many of us want it to go, that the only way through this, I believe, is to lead by example. For each of us to kind of step up in whatever ways whatever skills we have to offer to bring to this fight. And I want to make this note. I'm going to use the word fight throughout tonight, just at different points. And I want to make it clear that it's not in any way, in case anyone's confused, an invocation to violence or sort of insurrection, if you will, right? People fight in different ways. Some people fight by homeschooling their kids. Some people fight by growing their own food. We should all fight by growing our own food. Some people get off big tech. There's a lot of different ways that in this fight we have solutions. We have options, right? So just remember that throughout tonight. So we're doing this tour. Miriam's bringing the message of spirituality, mental, physical health, and we're doing the guided meditations. Ramiro's bringing the tech side. And what I'm going to talk to you guys about tonight is called "This is what we're facing, and this is what we can do about it." And we're going to really emphasize heavily on the "this is what we can do about it," because I'm going to operate under the assumption that everybody here came to hear solutions. Anybody came here for some solutions with all the crazy shit going on? Cool. You're in the right place. But before we do go any further, look, I know it's a public park, but I mean, we are in New York. You guys know the rules. I need all the vaccinated on this side and the unvaccinated on this side. This whole tour, I got 0 compliance. thankfully. And obviously, I'm joking, but damn, what the hell happened here? It's kind of weird to come here. It's not the first place we've been, unfortunately. We were in San Francisco. We can't go. In San Francisco, I think the rules are even a little more extensive than what's here in New York. It's like gyms, restaurants, bars, and some other places. So we couldn't even really go inside anywhere when we were over there for our event. We had to kind of do a underground like email if you want to get the address because they're worried about people canceling. When we were in Santa Cruz, California, we had 2 venues canceled because the local kind of COVID mob got upset that we were there hosting an event during this dangerous time and got the venues to cancel on us. We ended up doing it in a public park and 80 plus people showed up and it was wonderful. It was great. So I'm going to talk to you guys about solutions, and there's a few things that I want you to understand from, because we're nearing the end of the tour, right? I feel like we've already gained some lessons just being on the road across this big, beautiful country. And there are some places like in Texas, Arizona, Iowa, maybe a couple other places where people feel pretty comfortable right now. Like they think, our governor's looking out for us, they did this executive order, or, they think that they're sitting good right now. And then there's other places like San Francisco, New York City, New Orleans, LA County, that are already starting to push the proof of vaccination kind of things, what we refer to as vaccine passports. Even if it's not a full-on digital thing yet, the point is we're moving that direction. So Miriam and I were sitting comfortably back in Mexico where we've been living for the last year and a half and looking for land to build an intentional community called the Conscious Agora that I'm going to tell you guys about tonight. And it really felt like an important time to come back out on the road and connect with people, not only because everything that's going on, but I'm sure you guys are all aware of it, whether it's through your own work or through the people you follow, that there's a lot of censorship that's been going on that's only gotten worse over the last 3 years. And Ramiro kind of mentioned it earlier. Recently, some of us in the alternative media were celebrating, well, not celebrating, but we were remembering the anniversary of what we call the Purge in 2018. It happened in October 2018. And it was the first time a lot of the major Facebook pages were deleted. Facebook pages, YouTube, Twitter. This was October 2018, and I think 500 pages in total were deleted. Reaching hundreds of millions, probably billions of people collectively, all just gone like that. It was the first step of us realizing, holy crap, we're moving. They just sunk our battleship, basically, right? We just lost all this reach. And since most of us had built our work dependent on Facebook reach, it wasn't very long after that before a lot of the independent alternative media collapsed because there was no more Facebook reach, which meant there was no more eyeballs looking at ads, which meant there was no more money to pay writers. And people like myself, within a week, in June 2018, 2019, nearly half the alternative media got fired because there's just no more money, right? They really have done a number over the last couple of years. And now we're in a new ecosystem where there's fact checkers and there's, little bubbles to tell you, this is fake news, don't think any deeper. Trust us, this is fake. You don't have to think any deeper. Trust your cognitive dissonance, right? My point is we're dealing with a very unique ecosystem right now. I believe everything we're seeing happening right now in response to COVID had to happen after they started to go after the alternative independent media. It's much easier to do something like this when you've essentially taken out half of the alternative media, which if that hadn't happened, there would be probably 5 to 10 more times the amount of well-written investigations and articles from all these, from the anti-media, from a lot of the bigger teams that used to be around. So anyways, I get a little bit ahead of myself, but we're going to talk about some of the solutions. Before we do that, I do want to, for those, is there anybody here who's completely unfamiliar with my work and accomplished resistance, freedom cells, etc.? Awesome, welcome to being here. And some of you, I know you're familiar with my journalism, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about that. But I do want to go back a little bit to just talk to you about why we include the meditation aspect of that, why we have Danny and Vanessa talk about the spiritual aspect, because it is absolutely important to what we're doing. The bulk of the solutions that I'm going to talk about tonight, and what Ramiro talked about, they're in the physical realm. These are things that we can do practically to try to prepare for what's coming. But I want to make it clear that we absolutely do believe that this is, I don't know what other way to put it, but a spiritual battle of sorts. Does anybody else come to that realization? Has anybody else over the last year and a half felt like this is the time they were born for? Like this is what you're here for? Anybody else get that feeling? I definitely have that feeling myself. And I think I can say confidently from traveling the country, there are thousands and thousands of people like yourself who also believe this is what they were born for, that this is the time for us to get our communities organized, to make sure that we can continue to live and thrive into the future so that we can leave a better world for the coming 7 generations and beyond. We're going to talk all about that tonight. But let's talk a little bit about my work. My name is Derek Rose. I'm 36 years old, originally from Houston, Texas, currently living in Mexico. In 2010, I started to wake up, as we like to call it, started to get involved in activism, started a group called Houston Freethinkers, and from 2010 to 2018, I was very involved with local activism, doing everything from confronting politicians, protests, marches, building community gardens, skill shares, documentary screenings, music festivals, anything we could think of to try to reach people. We really tried to create a counterculture that gave a shit. In fact, we used to have these shirts that said Houston Freethinkers, making it cool to give a shit since 2010. Because that was kind of the idea. It's like we just need people to see that it can be cool to do something and to pay attention to what the hell is going on, and not just like a lot of us in our 20s and maybe 30s just being blissfully ignorant, right? Just partying, kind of living your life and ignoring things. I definitely went down that road. So I started to wake up to all these things. I started to get involved in activism, and along the way, our activism started to get covered by the local news. One time we got a shotgun pulled on us. I got arrested. It made all the local papers. We were on Alex Jones' show back in like 2011. All the media showed up at my house to do an interview. They acted really friendly. And then that night on the local news, the news said that we surrounded the cops and that we were violent and drunk and angry. It was a mob of people. Just totally, it was my first taste of like, wow, they really just do that. And this happened numerous times. And sure enough, after a while, I realized that, okay, the media really sucks at their job. I probably could do this better. I didn't go to school for journalism. I just sort of felt a calling to start investigating things, going to the local politicians, to the local police chief, and putting a camera in their face, putting a microphone to them and asking them a hard question, right? So I started to do that, and I started to get writing opportunities in the alternative media, and along the way, I've written these books and produced some documentaries. I produced a documentary, some of you may have seen it, called The 5G Trojan Horse, about 5G and EMFs. I produced a documentary about Jeffrey Epstein before most people knew his name, called Bringing Down Jeffrey Epstein in 2018. And currently I'm working on a 16-part documentary series called The Pyramid of Power. I recommend you guys check that out. It's a tool I'm putting out for you to use to wake up your friends at thepyramidofpower.net. These are short 20 to 25-minute episodes about the media, the corporations, all the different institutions that many of you are familiar with or maybe not so familiar with. And in 25 minutes, it breaks down the most important facts, documented facts for them, ends with solutions, and ends with further recommended reading and watching, right? Check it out at thepyramidofpower.net. So I've been dedicating my life for the last 12 years to just trying to find any avenue I could. And I've gone to do reporting at Standing Rock, a number of other indigenous issues over the years that are really important to me, and just trying to cover the truth and show what the media won't do. And that's been my political awakening, right? My activist awakening. It's what's led me here to you guys. But I actually believe that for me, the journey started about, a little bit before that, back in 2005. I think that the experiences I had in 2005, which preceded me waking up in the political realm to the government, corporations, etc., that whole agenda, the events that preceded that actually, I believe, helped get me here. And in 2005, I was 20 years old, and in January 2005, I tried crystal meth for the first time. I got addicted, and by November 2005, I was in prison. And I just had a very quick spiraling down. I hit the bottom, fell down a little bit more, got myself sober, but I kept kind of running those circles, and sure enough, got caught and got arrested. When I got arrested, a week before I turned 21, I'm sitting in prison after having spent most of my young life visiting my birth father in prison for his drug addiction that he got from my grandfather, and I had uncles and family on my mom's side, also alcoholics. And as I've gotten older and seen, the sort of indigenous history on both sides of my family, I definitely see there's this intergenerational trauma that a lot of my family has chosen to use drugs and alcohol to cope with. And so here I am, finding myself locked up after spending most of my early years very sad, and then eventually angry at my father for coming in and out of my life and being on drugs, and why would he do this? And also, as some of my youngest memories as a little kid were being 4 or 5 years old and visiting my father in prison and trying to just navigate that situation as a little kid, like, why do we have to go to this place behind razor wire? How come I only get to see him for an hour? Why does he have a black eye? Just all this stuff, and trying to understand that. It turned me into a very sad, very depressed little kid. I remember having very suicidal thoughts at 7 years old, right? And that led to self-harm. That eventually led me to becoming the angry teenager. I was very intelligent. I ended up graduating early from high school, went into college, but nobody knew that about me. They knew me as the kid throwing chairs at teachers, getting fights at school, getting arrested, right? And then it was after I got out of high school, started drinking, and it just basically was this 2-year cycle of drinking, then pills, and this thing, then crystal, then prison, right? It was just me going through that and thinking that drugs were the sort of going to lead me to enlightenment, or this is what I finally been looking for. This is the happiness I was looking for. Obviously, I found out quickly that wasn't the case. But I say all this with hindsight. In 2005, when I got arrested, none of this was clear to me yet. It was just like, okay, I got arrested just like this dude, and I clearly saw this kind of parting of paths. Like, I can go this way, continue the family tradition, right? Go into prison and see where that leads and all that. Or I can try to do something different. And I very consciously made an effort, like, I'm going to do something different. I started journaling every day, just really trying to understand the things I was just explaining to you. Like, why was I just sticking as many drugs up my nose as possible? What was I looking for? You know, what was the real root cause of that? And I chose to use that time, which the first time it was 11 and a half months, and then between 2005 and 2008, I ended up doing 18, 19 months in Texas state institutions and becoming a felon. But, you know, you ever have a situation where you're completely powerless? I mean, you're facing something that just totally rocks your world and in a very bad way. And no matter who you call, mom, dad, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, sister, whoever, friend, lawyer, they can't bail you out of this. You know, you have to really just sit with it because this is your reality, right? And out here, it's funny because in jail they refer to this place as the free world. Maybe we should rethink that. I don't know. But when you're in there and you think about the free world, you think about just how you'll do things differently. People take different paths. Some people get locked up, and I met a lot of good people, a lot of brilliant people. Some of them are dead. They never figured it out, including my father. Some of them cycled in and out of that, and they might still be cycling out of those systems right now. Others figured it out before I ever did, and went in, never went back. I had to go back and forth a couple times. But when I was there and I was in that situation, I completely felt powerless. Like out here, you can distract yourself. In there, when you have to accept, I can go on the phone and cry and call my girlfriend, my lawyer, mom, whatever, but there's nobody in this moment who can get me out of this place I'm in, who can stop this experience. I'm going to have to live this. I have to live this next 12 months. You're looking at the calendar. This is the earliest I'm going home, right? And in that really powerless situation is honestly where I felt like I found my strength and my power, just choosing to all right, I'm going to use this time to really try to understand what I just went through and why I was doing those things. And so that was the beginning of me starting to really go inward and become introspective and start to journal. And then eventually in the Chronicle, the Houston Chronicle that they pass around the prison, and on the weekends they have a religious section. And they usually quote from different traditions, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran. And they had a quote from the Dhammapada, which is sometimes known as the Buddhist Bible. And there was a verse that was a saying of the Buddha. I don't remember what it was, but it was something that just struck me so deeply that I pretty immediately got family and friends to just start sending me books or essays or anything they could on just different types of meditation. And I started meditating when I was locked up. And that's a big part of why we incorporate meditation, because meditation was one of the first things. Being in this place that's full of a lot of ego, fear, a place like prison, there's definitely a lot of fear, and that's sort of masked by people who are trying to be macho and mask it with their ego, right? But it's really all comes back to fear. And being in that environment, it was probably the perfect place to try to do that, and to start learning to meditate. But I began this journey of healing that continues to today. And that was in 2005, getting locked up. And as I said, I kind of bounced back and forth for a couple of years, but it was in that time that I really started to begin this healing process. And it felt like in that space, this cloud was lifted off me. Not only in the sense of I was getting sober off all these crazy drugs I was using, but that cloud of depression that I was experiencing for most of my young life was finally kind of starting to dissipate. And I remember when I got out of prison, being able to, for the first time, enjoy a sunset and just stopping, one day getting off work at this crappy job. It was the only job I could get because I was a felon now getting out, right? I had that experience too. But I was just thankful. I was just thankful to be free, to be alive. And it took a long time to get to that place. It also took a long time to get to the place of saying, you know what, I love myself. I think I've made some mistakes, but I think I'm generally a good person. I'm doing my best, right? That took a lot of work, a lot of effort, and a lot of years. And as I was in that space and starting to heal, I'm getting out of prison, kind of reemerging in the world, it was really interesting. Some of the friends I had prior to getting locked up that I stayed in touch with, they started to say things like, I'm really getting sick of your optimism. I think we're headed in different directions. So yeah, my life was completely changed coming out. And again, I was a felon now. So now I was having the experience of being in Texas as a felon. You can't get a job here. You can't get rented here. Maybe people hear you're a felon and they make assumptions or think that maybe that means you must be a violent person or whatever sort of assumptions they think when they hear someone's a felon, right? And it's interesting because since that time, the life that I live now, there's never been anybody who's ever asked me if I have a felony before I write articles for them or do investigations for them or things like that. It doesn't affect my world, but if I was to try to go back into the
the matrix, if you will, and try to get a job, I guarantee you the fact that I have a felony from 17 years ago would come up and could even still cost me jobs in some cases, which is just, I paid my debt to society, as they like to say. But either way, I was getting out with this new experience of being excited about life, feeling reinvigorated to want to learn. Like I remembered I wanted to just understand the world, and I was getting out. I got out October 2008, which if you remember that time period, this is a really interesting time to kind of be re-emerging to the world. This is a month before Obama became elected president. And I didn't really know anything about politics other than I didn't trust the government. I was smart enough to know that. And in that space, October 2008, I get out. I'm a felon. I'm at the library all the time, applying for jobs. And I started reading books at the library. And I read a book that was all about the true history of the drug war and about the Harrison Act of 1914 and just how much racism and money and driving out the hemp industry really played a role in making the first drugs become illegal. And just to me, honestly, since let's bring it full circle, to me, the people that allowed that to happen, to get to the point where the government can say, no, you can't have that alcohol or that cannabis or whatever, to me, the eventuality is where we are now. We've already given them permission to say, we can tell you what to put in your body. Maybe people don't, I don't like if people use drugs, but just recognize when you say, well, the government has the right to tell people what to put in their body, eventually you get to the point where they think they have a right to tell you to put a vaccine in your body. To me, it's all bullshit, right? And I say that even as a former drug addict, that people shouldn't be locked up for nonviolent victimless crimes like drug use. I didn't need to be locked in a cage. I just needed somebody to talk to. I just chose to use that space to do something positive with it. But as I said, there's a lot of good people who are wasting away in those places. It's not about rehabilitation. So anyways, I'm out. I'm a felon. I start reading about the drug war. And that was when a light bulb went off in my head. And it was really just like, why is this version of history not what I was told in high school? And what else is there? And that was going into 2009. Watched the book, read a book, watched a documentary, and that began to everything else I said. The Houston Freethinkers, journalism, all the things that you guys know me for. But really, again, I feel like it started in 2005 with my drug addiction, with going to prison. That, to me, helped me recognize that as I started to wake up to the things going on in the physical realm, what I call the predator class, the pyramid of power, these folks that try to manipulate our world in different ways, including with what has come to be known as COVID 1984. That while that's important and that absolutely has a place, that journey, that search for truth, we also can't forget about the struggle against our own internal tyrant, our doubts, fears, and insecurities, our limiting beliefs, right? Because the way I think about it is, I was going through some really tough things back then. And like, let's imagine I was doing that right now. And I was walking in the park today, and one of you guys tried to hand me a flyer about vaccine passports or vaccine mandates. I would have listened to you. I would have said, oh my God, are they really doing that? I can't believe they're denying people entry to the grocery stores in France. Are you serious? They're doing what in Australia? I would have listened to you, right? I would have been concerned, but I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it. I was just trying not to kill myself that day. I was trying to make it through another tough, like emotionally intense time. And when I made it through that and got through the other side, and through this tour, I continue to meet current addicts, former addicts, people who've never used drugs but are struggling in one way or the other, that there is so much trauma in the human race generally, but definitely within our truth, freedom communities, right? We're all at different levels of healing. And I'm not here to tell anybody how to pursue healing per se, whether meditation's your thing or some other method. The point is that I believe if we ignore that internal tyrant and the spiritual aspect of this, and we only focus on the physical, the material, then I think we are destined to do a revolution, which the key word there is revolve, to go in circles, and maybe we become the new people, right? We think we're enlightened enough to be empowered, and how long will it take before our egos take over and we just become the same things we've been fighting, right? I don't know that we can create utopia per se, but I do think that if we all aim to heal our wounds and to work on aiming for something better, especially a world that respects bodily sovereignty and individual liberty, then we can create something better. So to me, the conscious resistance, what I sometimes call holistic activism or holistic anarchism, it's essentially the recognition that the struggle for a more free and ethical and just world will not come from only confronting the physical institutions of power, but it'll come from that as well as working on that internal struggle. Does that make sense to you guys? So, thank you. So I'm going to give you an example. So when I first started to get into this and realize this, look, I woke up first spiritually. I started to get into meditation. Then I started to watch crazy documentaries on YouTube and went down that disinformation rabbit hole, as they like to call it these days. And I woke up. But for the first couple of years, these were sort of separate areas of my life. I had my meditation friends and consciousness groups, and we would do our things. And I had my activist friends, and we would do protests and marches and rallies and that sort of thing. And these days, it feels like there's a lot more spiritual anarchists, if you will, or people who are concerned about freedom and spiritual matters or meditation, kind of open-minded. It didn't feel that way 10 years ago. It seemed like there was a lot less of us, or maybe we hadn't found each other yet, right? When I was starting the conscious resistance, most of the activists, specifically the anarchists I was working with, were mainly atheists. So there's nothing wrong, I don't have anything against atheists, but I was looking for other people to connect in that deeper kind of way, like about freedom and anarchism, but also about spiritual matters. And I wasn't finding it, so I had to live this sort of double life for a while. I had the activist friends and I had the meditation friends. And I'd be out here with my activist friends, and we'd be on the street holding a sign or something. I'd say, hey guys, you want to come to this meditation? And there was just no interest. Or I'd say something weird like, hey guys, you ever thought maybe we're all God? Maybe we're just like reflections of each other or something, some weird trippy thing. And they'd, say, are you high, man? What are you talking about? We're here to protest the Federal Reserve. We're not here to talk about your weird hippie stuff. And then I'd go to my meditation circles and consciousness groups, and I'd say, guys, you hear about these vaccine passports? There's a protest coming up. We need to get involved. This police shooting, whatever the issue was. And they'd say, don't talk about it. You're going to manifest it. Don't bring the bad vibes. And so for the first couple of years, I guess I won't talk about that with these friends, and I won't talk about this with these friends. And for the first couple of years, I did that. But then by 2013, I kind of had this, a second shift, if you will. And the phrase, the conscious resistance, came to me. It was just that recognition, like I said, that to me, I couldn't live this double life anymore. It's like, this is the same thing for me. This is the same thing, right? So if you resonate with that, that's what we're here to talk about tonight, as well as to talk about some practical solutions for what we're facing and what some of you guys already here in the city are already dealing with, right? There are workarounds, as Danny and Vanessa were talking about. I think there's workarounds, and there's going to be ways that people will learn to navigate this new normal, as these folks like to call it. But I think we also need to consider our long-term solutions. Like, how do we make sure that us and our children and our children's children, etc., stay free long-term into the future? That's what I really want to talk about. So we're going to get now into the main talk here. What are we facing? I'm going to try to spend a little bit of time here, not too much, because I'm here in New York, and I feel like I don't really need to explain these things called vaccine passports very much. But yes, as Vanessa said, people from outside the state are definitely like, why the hell are you still here? Why are you still here? And obviously, like, the reality is not necessarily always going to be reflective of what people hear in the news. But I think the sentiment or the concern is that people are like, well, the big city, you need to get out of there. But I'll tell you this, we were in Kentucky, Lexington, Kentucky, about a week and a half ago. And even in Kentucky, one of the states that's publicly spoken out, governors standing up, whatever, they are already, like this lady at our event said that because she didn't have proof of vaccine for her child or herself, that her doctor that's been seeing her kids for 25 years, this is her youngest kid now, refused to see her kid when she was like, I think he has strep throat. Can you please test him for strep throat? The doctor refused to see him. She had to beg him basically. He agreed to do it, but out in the alley behind the office, he set up a giant tent, came out in a hazmat suit, and gave her a 30-minute lecture before he would swab with something because she was unvaccinated, right? And that's in Kentucky. So my point with talking about some of these things tonight is to recognize I don't necessarily know that anywhere is going to be safe into the super long-term future, including Mexico. I think places like Mexico are quote-unquote behind. That's one of the reasons I'm there, besides it being a beautiful place. But I do think places that are considered third world at the moment might fare off better as long as they can keep the technocrats out of their countries, because they want to come save Africa and save Mexico and save India and all that crap. So let's talk a little bit about what we are facing, though, before we get into the solutions aspect. I'm just going to read you guys some headlines from the most recent week, because I think many of you have fresh memories of what's happened over the last year and a half, right? Lockdowns, people being put out of business, people dealing with it in a very difficult way, mental health-wise. Just bankrupting of regular America. Sure, you got a $600 or a $1,200 check, but the same criminals that robbed you in 2008 were getting fat checks out of this stimulus bill as well. It's the same. There are literally so many people making money off this operation. We've seen the rise of authoritarianism in different countries. Currently, the most pure example of that is Australia right now. Just a couple of weeks ago, the government of New South Wales announced that if you receive both vaccines and you wear your mask, you now get to go outside for 2 hours a day. Literally, that's the situation that it's become over there. We have friends, part of the Freedom Zone Network, who are in Melbourne, and one of them is a dude who's in his late 20s, recently celebrated a birthday. Just like every average 26-year-old, snuck out of the curfew, snuck through the checkpoint, and went on a camping trip with friends to have just a regular old birthday party, right? I mean, these are realities that are going on. This is what I'm saying. Like, these aren't far. It's not just like China. This is like Western nations, the UK, Israel, France, Spain, Portugal, Greece, parts of the U.S. are all implementing various. Even Costa Rica just announced by December 1st that they're going to start requiring proof of vaccine for restaurants and for, and that's countrywide. So it's happening, right? I think it is important, as Vanessa was saying as well, to not act from a place of fear. We're definitely not here to doom porn or fear monger or anything, just to acknowledge the realities that are around us, right? But to not act from a place of imbalance or panic or fear. Because the way I feel about it is the more proactive I am in creating solutions in my lives and in my family's lives and the people I care about, then the less reason I have to be stressed out, right? Because if I feel like, holy crap, I see this scary stuff ahead and I'm doing nothing, I'm just sort of waiting for it to happen, like a lot of people seem to be, then it's easy to see why you might be concerned or scared or nervous or whatever. But if you're being proactive, I feel like there's less of an opportunity. So let's just read a few headlines. Just last week, it was announced that the White House has notified all the governors that they have 28 million, they have enough doses for 28 million children ages 5 to 11. And just it was reported again today, kind of that the White House rolls out plan to quickly vaccinate 28 million kids aged 5 to 11 against COVID-19, just announced today, Wednesday, anticipating the FDA's emergency use authorization for Pfizer for kids in that range. And this was actually local. I thought this was interesting. I always try to check what's going on to a city as we're visiting. This was just announced today, right? We already know that people in the city, bars, gyms, and restaurants without proof of vaccine, and I'm sure there's some places that aren't compliant. It's never going to be 100%, at least at the moment, right? But today they announced that New York City expands COVID vaccine mandates to all public employees. Now they're eliminating the test out option. So public employees are going to be fired by, I think, the end of this month if they don't comply. So starting today, all employees who get their booster shot or get their first shot at a city-run site get an extra $500 in their check. And this ends next week. So it says employees not vaccinated by then will be placed on unpaid leave. And this is what the mayor said. The voluntary phase was very long. Now we're saying we need you to do this. Their words, not mine. Let's give just a couple other examples. Okay, another area, Australia, Northern Territory announces that their people have 30 days to be vaccinated if they work with anybody else at all, whether it's a public thing, whether you're working offline in an office with other people, whatever it is. If you're around other people, you must be vaccinated by the beginning of November or face the loss of your job and $5,000 fine. That's in Northern Territory in Australia. Toronto Hospital Network says that they're no longer going to do life-saving organ transplants for the unvaccinated. Canadian Town says that they will not do marriage license for those who are not vaccinated. We could go on and on, right? Like, you guys get the point here. What I'm trying to hammer home is that these are realities that are happening right here in front of us. These are things that are going on. And even if we can tune it out, because honestly, it's been great being on tour for me, because typically when I'm at home, sort of just by the nature of my work, I have to be plugged into some degree, like, right? What is the mainstream talking about? What are they not talking about? What's the alternative? I just kind of keep up with it all. On the road, I don't have time for it. It's been great. And honestly, when you do travel the country, even in the worst places, like, again, people think New York is one of the worst places, Portland, San Francisco, people are still out at the park. Maybe they're masked, maybe they're not, but they're still living their lives. I think that's the great thing is people haven't just, I mean, I'm sure there's some people still peeking through the window and waiting for it to all go away, but gosh, hopefully they get through that. Because seriously, we need to have empathy and compassion. There's a lot of traumatized people at the moment. Anybody else seen that as well? But, so, as we are kind of taking this on, recognize that people have been consumed by that fear. Some people have been consumed by that paranoia. Not everybody is seeing or finding the same information that we're talking about. Not everybody sees, for one reason or another. I don't know, I've been trying to figure it out. If we didn't drink enough fluoride water, or if we didn't watch enough TV, or something happened, something went wrong in our programming. I think most of the people here are survivors of public school systems, so somehow, we still got through it. We still made our way to weird events like this. We are facing, though, even if it feels like normal, even if I can travel the country and most of the U.S. feels generally normal, that doesn't mean the tyrants in D.C. or at the state capitals aren't still passing laws and pushing mandates and pushing things, right? And ultimately, we're seeing, for the most part, compliance. It's good to see that there was a rally last week, or this past weekend in New York, right? It's good to see that there are rallies happening in Italy and other places that people are pushing back. But so far, it hasn't stopped them from passing any more laws.
It hasn't stopped them from issuing new mandates. It hasn't stopped them from finding people, right? There's just a lot of realities that are still in our face. So again, with me recognizing that the physical and the spiritual matter, I think that we have to give some attention to what's happening. We see this rise of authoritarianism, which is the most current expression of the threat that we see is the vaccine passport, which is just an excuse to bring on a full-on biometric ID. Now, there are people much more educated and intelligent than myself who've been warning about this for years. I wrote about it in my book, How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State, which you can download for free, theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. I wrote that book in late 2019, published it in January 31st, 2020, right before COVID was announced. And all I need to do is add the word vaccine passport. It's totally relevant. But I didn't have a crystal ball. I didn't know there was going to be this situation, but I knew that we were going to be facing what some of you might become familiar with, but is known as technocracy. Are you guys becoming familiar with this term? So it's a political philosophy that's been around for over 100 years, and most people have never heard of it, but it essentially means instead of the rule by the people, which is the idea behind democracy, or even a tyranny, that you have a rule by the experts, the scientific and technological elite, who are deemed smarter than the rest of us, and they should use their brains and technology to make decisions for us. This is where you get the Gates and the Bezos and some of these other people, unelected power, people who do wield a lot of power and influence but are never elected to any position and are working with these different bodies like the World Economic Forum and the United Nations. Again, I don't want us to focus only on the problems, but I think it is important. Has everybody here come to the terms in the last year and have to recognize that this isn't just about COVID, but this is a pre-existing agenda that is much bigger? Have people come to terms with recognizing that? If that's still new to you, I invite you to go to theconsciousresistance.com or to start watching the Pyramid of Power series and go check out my Great Reset documentary and some of the other work that we've done over the last year and a half to really dig in deep and to see the bigger picture of what's going on. So, the vaccine passport, the biometric ID, these are threats that have been around for a while. Right now, two of the biggest threats we face is the rise of AI and the rise of facial recognition technology. Currently in the U.S., Illinois is the only state that has any sort of restriction or regulation, for whatever good that is, on facial recognition biometric collection. That means the rest of the country, the rest of the states, private companies and government have been and are currently gathering these are known as our face prints. They're gathering our face prints. There's companies like, some of you might know Clearview AI. You might have heard that name recently. They're a company that has one of the world's largest database of face prints of all of us and people all around the world, just by creating a tool that can scrape that data from social media and all the things that we've voluntarily given. And there's nothing illegal, there's nothing wrong about it. It's just this company that is definitely growing, and they sell that data, those access to that database, to the governments, to the cops, to pretty much anybody who has the money to do so. The governments themselves are also building these databases. So what I'm getting at here is that these agendas have pre-existed and predated COVID-19. It's very important to recognize that. And a part of those agendas is to get everyone to accept a digital ID that will be used to get in and out of everywhere. We're already seeing that in some parts of the country. You can look to Israel's Green Pass. You can look to some of the other nations that seem to be a little bit further ahead than the United States at the current moment. And we can also look to these people's own words. That's the thing, is at this point, this is sort of more than ever an open conspiracy, if you will. The Great Reset, they still call that a conspiracy, but it's all out their own words. They may use the buzzwords and say it's about equity and diversity and sustainability and being inclusive, but ultimately they do see a centralized world with them making these decisions that they believe is for the best of us, right? This is what we're facing, the rise of technocracy, the Great Reset, Agenda 2030. I know you guys are becoming increasingly familiar with these terms. I also want to mention one other term before we move on to what we can really do about this and talking about the solutions here. Has everyone become familiar with the term social credit score? Hearing more about this, and not just through the Black Mirror TV show. This is reality. In case you haven't recognized in the last few years, reality is actually a little bit more disturbing than fiction, fairly often. And in China, parts of China where what's known as the Sesame Credit social credit score system has been implemented, millions of people have already been denied the right to fly out of their own country the last couple of years because their scores were too low. People were denied access to loans, to promotions, to all sorts of different social advantages based on having too low of a score. And how do you get this score? What is this score based on? Well, we're all familiar with the financial credit score, which is if you go out and get a loan and you don't pay it back, and you end up with a bad credit score and you can't get further loans, maybe you can't get a car, get a house, etc. And that system is already corrupted. It has its own issues. But what we're talking about is a social credit score, a system that relates to your social interactions, the way you interact with society at large. So, for example, let's say you're the kind of person that pays your taxes on time. Your score goes up. Let's say you take your recycling out, every week. Your score goes up. Let's say, and this is for real in China, let's say that every afternoon during the peak hours you read Mao's little red book. Your scores go up because it's showing that you're a good, obedient, citizen to the state. Let's say that one of these days you just cross the street and you're in a hurry and you decide to jaywalk. You know that there are literally thousands of facial recognition cameras all around you, but you figure, screw it, I'm in a hurry, right? As soon as you do that, one of them scans your face, and within moments, place your face up on a digital billboard, which is an attempt at kind of public shaming. Look at this person who just jaywalked, how dare he? But also your social credit score will suffer because of that, right? You don't pay your taxes on time, your score goes down. Now, what do you think happens to people like some of you guys here who like to post crazy extremist things on the internet? You think your score is going to go up or down? Clearly, you're not going to be doing well if this world comes to fruition. This is what's already taking place in China. This is a soft form of social engineering, right? I don't have to come up to him and put a gun up his head and say, do what I say. You create a digital system around where if he moves or does what they call antisocial behavior, which of course is defined by the Chinese government, if he commits antisocial behavior, then his score will suffer. And in the Chinese Yellow Book that describes the implementation of the system that they hope to roll out in the coming years, they say in their own words that their goal is that people who are antisocial won't be able to take a single step from their homes. That you will lose all what used to be known as rights and are now known as privileges, right? So that's just one aspect of the social credit score system. Now, maybe you're like me, and you're pretty unplugged from these systems. You don't have a relationship with the IRS. You don't have a bank account. You're not dependent on them in all these other ways. So they can give me a 0 for all I care, right? Because I'm not going to be stuck and plugged into their system. But my mother's still very much plugged into that system. And I like to go visit my mom once every couple weeks. But when I go see her, she tells me, honey, I love you, but if you keep coming and seeing me, my score is going to keep going down, and I'm going to miss this next job promotion. It's not just you, it's the people around you. They are affected by the people they hang out with, which is just, again, another way to reinforce people disavowing and disconnecting from, antisocial, extremists, whatever label they want to give us, anti-science, QAnon, whatever the hell they want to throw at us, right? And the funny thing is, I just want to make this note, the funny thing is, guys, all that bullshit, it's just so clearly bullshit, right? We're traveling the country. We're going to northern Arizona up in the mountains. We're hanging out with like these guys look like Duck Dynasty, huge beards, overalls, mountain men growing their own food, doing all this awesome shit. Then we go down to Sedona. We're hanging out with the hippies and their crystals and the vortexes, and there's just as many people equally excited, right? They try to put us all in a box, but this is true diversity, right? This isn't forced. And I think the beautiful thing is we might all have different musical interests. We might all have different lifestyles outside of this. But what is increasingly uniting people is this desire to respect bodily autonomy, individual liberty, self-ownership. These are the things that are starting to unite us. And I think that's so beautiful because that's bigger than any age, ethnic background, etc. Like, what's the age range we have here? Anybody in their 50s? 60s? 70s? 80s? We got somebody from the 70s. I know I've seen some younger people here. We've had on the tour, somebody was 94 the other day. 94 years old and down to 5 months old. I mean, I think that is just a beautiful example of the generational opportunity, the potential, just here with everybody here tonight, right? So, there's just, you guys still with me? I still got more to go, so I'm hoping you got time for me. But we're facing, okay, so the social credit score is not just about what you're doing, but it's about punishing the people around you, right? So eventually, you might have people in your life who choose to disavow you, disconnect from you because of your choices, which actually, come to think of it, is already happening. Did anybody lose any friends or family members in the last year or strained relationships because of your health choices, right? This is quite common around the country, unfortunately. And we're going to talk about some traps in a moment, and I think that's exactly what they would like to happen, for us to be divided, family member against family member. We do have to practice compassion. We do have to practice empathy. When we were traveling in Portland, it was beautiful to see this first march against vaccine passports in Portland. 120 plus people marching through the city, lots of support, literally people in tears who were like, thank you guys. I didn't even know there was other people in the city. I thought I was the only one who felt this way, right? Anybody felt alone in the last year? Felt like, damn, I'm the only one who sees these things? Well, thank you guys for being here. Hopefully by this point you've recognized that you're not alone. You're not alone. And I want to really make it clear to you guys, not only here, I'm sure there are other brothers and sisters here who are with us who couldn't be here for one reason or another, but also in every city we visited, you've got family. trying to figure this whole thing out, just like yourself, right? We truly are not alone. And I know we've got friends in Australia and India, across Europe, down in Mexico. Freedom Cells is growing. I mean, there's just these international, truly international worldwide movements are taking place. And so the reason I take time to talk about what we're facing, because I do think it is important. Like I said, I've not been so plugged in lately, but every time I dip in, they're still talking about this insanity, right? Like their plan is still going on. So while it's good for your mental health to not pay attention to the propaganda, don't assume it's still not happening, that their plans still, have slowed down or anything. Because I hope people are coming to realization this isn't just going to go away. This kind of agenda, this narrative, while it seems to be winding down, it could continue with variants, or we might be moving to this week's theme is going to be cyber pandemic. I'm not sure what's next on this season of America, but I'm sure it's going to be interesting for us. Cyber polygon, cyber pandemic, maybe it's the food supply chain. I don't know what's next, right? So this is, aliens, oh gosh. Whew. We got a lot coming our way. So one point I want to make is, look, the term Agenda 2030, you guys are familiar with that? If not, start looking into it. Go to theconsciousresistance.com, give that a search. It comes from the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. They talk about the plan for the 2030 agenda. And they recently had the UN Food Systems Summit talking about remaking the food systems. Of course, they promote it like it's going to be equitable, it's going to be positive, all these kinds of things. But really, this is coming from the same people that gave us the Green Revolution, which is known for such hits as glyphosate and GMOs and Indian farmer suicides and Terminator Gene and Rockefeller and Gates Foundation control. Like, those same people are funding the UN Food Systems Summit. Those same people, the World Economic Forum, the UN, are the people pushing the Great Reset. And they're also pushing what they call Agenda 2030. They have referenced 2030 for a long time. Even at the UN Food Systems Summit, just 2 weeks ago, at the end of September, they call this the decade of transformation. My friends, it's 2021 going into 2022. We are witnessing their decade of transformation. And either we are going to actively take a role in what is our decade of transformation like, or we're going to get swept up in their vision. I mean, clearly you guys know their plan is for places like New York City to turn into smart cities. They're doing it where I'm from in Houston. They're doing it in most major cities. I don't think long-term the cities will be safe, but that's my view. It doesn't mean maybe everybody who cares about freedom should leave. Maybe some people need to stay to hold down the fort. We'll talk about that. But I think ultimately we're at a point where people need to decide, how are you going to stay free? How is your family going to stay free? What does that look like? Hold that vision. Really know that vision. We're going to talk more about that too. Because I see that, for me, it feels like we're in somewhat of a time-sensitive situation. As I said earlier, I do feel like this is the moment that I'm here for. I think, like many of you, I think this is our moment to shine, right? But I do think it's calling to us to decide, what does that look like? Maybe some people are still clinging to old ways, pre-new normal, right? Remember, they spent the last year and a half trying to program that phrase into your head, the new normal. They have songs about it, celebrities talking about it, politicians, articles written about it. Clearly, there was an effort to get the new normal phrase in your head. We want to reject the new normal and decide, what does our vision look like? So the solutions we're going to talk about tonight, they're not easy. I'm not here to sell anybody like a 3-step email program. Sign up and next week I'll send you the one thing you have to do, and the deep state will go down or something like that. Anybody trying to tell you that is selling you bullshit, right? None of the solutions we've been sold throughout our lives are realistic. I don't think there's any quick fixes. Again, I don't think there's any quick fixes. I think the solutions that will lead to real lasting change, generational change that stays from one generation and it becomes a part of the people and it's carried on and on, it's going to take effort. It might involve lifestyle changes. It might involve working with people you didn't think you ever would work with, right? Does that happen for anybody in the last year? Anybody had their assumptions turned upside down about maybe who they thought they couldn't work with and who they thought would always be on your side or whatever, right? It's been an interesting time, but we have to decide how we're going to make it through this. Otherwise, we will get swallowed up by their technocracy, by their vision. I don't know that we can necessarily stop the Great Reset per se. I'm not here to really tell you that. You guys, doesn't mean we're giving up or laying down, of course, but they've invested trillions of dollars into this program, generational planning between these different families and these different organizations and institutions. I think there's a lot of momentum that might be nearly impossible to stop. Also, we're not dealing with a Hollywood movie. There's no ring of power to throw into the lake of fire and everything's fixed. There's no single smash the computer and the Great Reset's over. Like, I wish that was that easy. We'd go find the computer and we'd smash it, right? Everything would be good. We'd celebrate at the end. It would be nice. That's not the cards we've been dealt. I think what we're dealing with is more of a structural, it's generational trauma, it's intergenerational. Again, it's within us as well. We're dealing with a lot bigger situation than just put a new president in power. Everybody come to realize that as well, that things are bigger than just who you elect as president, right? If you want to play that game, continue to, but I don't suggest you put all your eggs in that basket. So, all right, I want to warn against 3 traps as we're moving through what we're facing, right? These are 3 things that I've been seeing on my journeys and definitely have witnessed somewhat on the tour. The first one is defeatism, right? We're definitely facing, we just talked about what we're facing, right? Some monumental circumstances. It can seem extremely overwhelming. Anybody felt hopeless in the last year at any point or felt like we're totally fucked? Like, I've felt that way a couple times, maybe once a week. It's all right. It's overwhelming. It can be very, especially when you start getting into some of these dark rabbit holes, man. Every now and then you got to come up for some air and remember to put your feet on the ground and remember what you're fighting for, all the beautiful things of the planet, right? Because there is some darkness out there. But because things can be so dark and because people can be overwhelmed by the magnitude of what we're facing, sometimes I see people get sucked into feeling totally hopeless or just defeated. Now, I like to talk about we're going to refer to it as a waking up process, the waking up process as a grieving process. Because think about this. You're essentially grieving the fact that so much, if not everything, that you were taught by people you're told to trust, principals, teachers, parents, government, whatever, the institutions we're taught from a young kid, these are this is what we put our faith in, that most of it was lies, right? Anybody have that experience? Like, holy crap. Maybe even, this is like a grieving process. You're realizing that so much of your foundation does not apply anymore. And then maybe the deeper you go, you just keep uncovering more things that you were told that don't line up, right? It could be a very difficult journey. It's the grieving process in a way. And there's this psychological model of grieving. They call it Kubler-Ross model of grieving. And it basically, you're probably familiar with it. It talks about the 7 stages of grieving that some people pass through. And it's not really meant like everybody passes through each stage for 2 days, and then it's just some people pass through these stages. Some last longer than others. Some might not go through all of them. It's just kind of an idea. It's something to work from. But when I think about it, they talk about, right, the first step is typically denial, right? You start to wake up to things. Think about this, but you're not really ready to go all the way. You're like, no, there's no way this is true. And then the information keeps coming. Then you're just like, after a while, you can't deny it. Like, holy, you get past the cognitive dissonance. You're like, oh my God. If I accept that this is true, and I was lied to about this is radically going to alter my life and this, and it all starts to unravel, right? You can go into a panic mode. You can feel very sad. Like, anybody get angry when you start to wake up, feel pissed off maybe? Like, this is what? A righteous anger. And then maybe a sadness, a depression even about, dang, this is what's really happening. How was I, so foolish my whole life? Whatever it could be, the range of emotions. And I think it is a natural process that typically most people work their way through it, and then eventually you come to that acceptance. Okay, yes, this is happening, and hopefully you get to a point where you're like, okay, now what can I do about it? And you start looking for solutions, right? That was my journey. I started to wake up, I freaked out, I bugged the hell out of everybody I knew. Hey, have you heard about this? Please check this out, watch this, and drove everybody crazy. Anybody else do that? Am I alone in that, right? And I found the 2 friends who didn't think I was crazy, and we started an activist group. And that's where it started, right? Sometimes that's what you do. You find one person who, I think I know what you're talking about. But in that panic phase, we can go, we can get angry, we can be sad. I tend to call this phase the Alex Jones phase. Now, whatever you feel about the man, I think that a lot of his work is definitely tinged with a bit of like fear porn and kind of like doom behind it. Like, doesn't mean anything about the facts behind it. Like, anybody seen Endgame? Endgame, blueprint for global enslavement. It's like, dude, that woke me up, but I tried to watch it since then. I can't do it. I'm like, this is too intense. I know he's telling the truth, but I can't get through this. So I think some people, though, they get in that stage where they need that kind of intensity. Or maybe, again, they're angry. They're angry, and they take this, us versus them, the stupid sheeple. This would all end if those stupid sheeple would just wake up and see what's going on, right? It's all these other idiots' fault. Or maybe they're angry, like, fuck Biden, fuck Trump, whatever. They just got this anger. And again, I think there's some righteous anger in there, but it needs to be directed and hopefully turned into like, okay, well, let's be proactive. What are we going to do with that energy you got there, this anger? Or maybe you're sad because you realize, like, I can't believe these people have all this control. I can't believe what they're doing to the kids. I can't, it's a lot, right? We have to be able to work through that. Because what I've seen is when someone gets sucked into that level, they become what I call the defeatist. And this is the person, you might have met them, that any solution you propose is not good enough for this person, right? So you're like, hey, we're going to start growing our own food. We're going to create a community garden. And they say, you really think they're going to let you keep your own food? You think you can feed your whole family? Yeah, we're going to get some land. We're going to get a community. Oh, you ever heard of Waco? You ever heard of Waco? You really think they're going to just let you live outside the system? Yeah, we're researching. We're getting involved in cryptocurrency. They control that. They own that. They bought that. That's a shill. That's a shill. That's a shill. You guys ever met this person, the defeatist? Don't be this person. Don't be this person. And maybe all of us slip into that mode at times, but seriously, there are so many solutions that are available to us. And while we are facing some monumental circumstances, it does start with small, maybe feeling like this isn't a big move, but hey, it's a step in the right direction. You know, working with somebody like Ramiro and getting yourself off of Microsoft onto Linux, it takes some effort. It takes, a learning curve. It takes some energy behind it. It takes saying, you know what, I'm willing to put my principles where my mouth is and actually do something about it, right? Because I think the biggest goal we need to focus on is aligning thoughts, words, and actions. We can't just know that things are bad and just talk about it. I think that time has passed. If it was ever enough just to know things are bad, that time is over. Now we need everybody to get as active as possible, recognize it's getting real, and we need you and your skills and your full mind to dress in the struggle for a better world. Like, that's kind of where I'm coming from now, that we really need to get serious about that and see that there are solutions. It can be easy to fall into the feeling of hopelessness and defeatism, but just be careful with that, my friends. I don't think that serves our goals. It doesn't serve us in the long term to fall into that step, right? And just to speak briefly again about the aligning of goals, that's talking about like with what Ramiro's trying to do with the Linux and getting people off that. Anybody heard of the Expose Bill Gates movement that we launched last year? Myself, James Corbett, some other people. We made this movement go viral around the world really for a good while. They censored it, of course, and called us crazy. But we had protests happening all around the world, and I think it definitely played a role in more and more people leading to James's documentaries about Bill Gates and some of my work and just questioning that situation, right? That was beautiful. But how can we go to the streets and march to expose Bill Gates and then come home and get on our Microsoft computers to share our photos, right? There's a disconnect, there's an inconsistency, and a lot of my message focuses on how do we bridge those gaps between our intentions and our goals and then our actual actions, right? We have good intentions, but if our actions don't align with that, then it's just words, it doesn't mean anything. Okay, so that's defeatism. Let's talk about the second trap I've seen fall. Division. Has everybody come to the realization that the division is the conspiracy? The division is the conspiracy. Right now, the most current expression of that is vaccinated versus unvaccinated. They want us, again, to be turning neighbor against neighbor, family member against family member. I definitely have lost friends that I've known for 10 plus years. Not even about the vaccine, just because I didn't want to wear a mask. And I've had family members say that they felt coerced to get the shot, otherwise their parents wouldn't see them anymore, right? I mean, people are already kind of making these distinctions, and it's very unfortunate, and it can be easy for us to fall into that mentality. So, for example, I should have said this earlier, but at all of our events, everybody is welcome, as you might notice, masked, unmasked, whatever. I want to connect with you. Generally, if you feel like you don't think it's right for me to be forcibly held down and given a shot against my will, then despite the other differences, we're pretty much on the same team. Like, if you guys believe in bodily autonomy, can we all unite behind that at the least, right? Everybody feel like they want to respect other people's self-ownership. I don't believe that all of you are just mass murderers in waiting. And if the government wasn't here, you all would be committing crimes, right? Clearly, we all know what is right and what is wrong, right? So it's easy for us to fall into the trap of us versus them, though. It can be the vaccinated versus the unvaccinated. Sometimes the hate doesn't come the other way. Sometimes it can come from our communities, right? People who are angry and maybe bitter or just mean towards people who choose to get the shot or choose to wear a mask. And I don't think that's helpful either, right? Anybody had the experience in the last months of seeing people who have been vaccinated and now start to question things? Because maybe they're like, wait, I got to get another one? Wait, this thing doesn't even work? I still have to wear a mask? Anybody seen that? People now starting to like, hey, let me go find that crazy friend again and say, hey, can you tell me more about that stuff you were talking about? I think if we're demeaning to people and we don't practice compassion and empathy, then when they do start to question things, and there will be more, because unfortunately, I think the path we have before us, my friends, which is a beautifully crazy one, I don't think things get better without us going through some tough times, because it's sort of this paradox that I think Danny touched on this earlier, that the worse things get, more and more people are questioning things. Unfortunately, too many people are comfortable. Too many people are still really comfortable. And so they can see things getting scary outside the window, but a lot of people are acting like deer in headlights and thinking, maybe if I just stay inside, it'll go away, right? Or, okay, well, I'll just hope this lawsuit fixes things, or the courts will work it out, or maybe if I sign this petition, or so-and-so is going to run in 2024, he'll fix things for me, right? Whatever false solutions people are putting their time in. To me, they're false solutions. I don't think they're going to lead, to real places. But it's easy to get falling to this trap, this us versus them mentality. Even within these communities, we're so enlightened, we're the awake ones, right? Those freaking idiots over there, they're so stupid with their COVID and their masks, right? Like, it's easy to fall into that, even with the best of intention. I'm just saying we need to look out for that, because our minds can very easily fall into a tribalistic mentality and into these separate little camps, even within the true freedom movement, right? But right now, I've seen so many people united, from the health freedom soccer moms to the, anarchist voluntarists to the, the psychedelics and the crypto people, the spiritual, so many communities coming together around self-ownership, around bodily autonomy, individual liberty, freedom of choice. These are the things that are uniting us, and I think it's so beautiful to see that. So let's focus on that and push past the division. The third trap I want to warn you guys about, and I think this is one of the most important, is what I'm referring to, you might have heard, as normalcy bias. Anybody familiar with this term? Normalcy bias is a cognitive bias which leads individuals to dismiss oncoming threats, right? So it's typically discussed in terms of facing disasters like economic disasters or weather events, right? This is like the person that they're getting a hurricane warning that their house is about to be knocked off the planet, and they're like, no, it's cool, I'm gonna stay, let's just keep staying. They just keep ignoring the warnings. Maybe their mind wants to not downplay it, but really what they say is that there's this psychological effect where our brains want a state of equilibrium, a state of balance. So even in the face of really scary things, our brains will try to find that balance and maybe even ignore warnings. And now when I look at what we're facing right now, I don't know if there's another way to describe it but disaster. And I see a lot of people who are falling into normalcy bias. There's a disaster incoming, and a lot of people know it, but they're just not doing anything about it. They just, again, like sort of sit still. And I'm not here to say I have the perfect solution for every single situation, every case, but I do believe that the answers and the solutions are within our communities, right? A lot of you guys came from different parts of the city or from other places, but I think the real key is you guys working together to find the solutions within your communities. We're learning a lot from the places we're visiting, but ultimately, if we choose not to have this conversation, we're never going to get to the solution. Does that make sense, right? If we don't start thinking, okay, this is what me and Miriam have to do with our families. Before we came on tour, this same conversation I'm having with you, I had with my family. And it was basically like, brother, sister, brother-in-law, you say you don't want to get the shot. Have you thought about what you're going to do when your work says you can't come back tomorrow without it? Well, I guess I'm going to get it. Because they're just sitting there waiting for it to happen, right? Well, what are you going to do when they mandate the shot for the kids? I guess I'll get them out. I don't want to homeschool, but I'm not going to give them the shot, so I'll homeschool. And so my thought is, okay, well, let's start researching that now. Don't wait for it to happen. Like, let's get ahead of the game. Let's start being proactive, right? To me, that's what we're here to talk about. That's the whole point of this tour. Is like, guys, there's some very real things in our view right now and in this coming decade of transformation. I think there's also a lot of potential for really beautiful things with what we get to create. But if we don't put the work, the physical, spiritual, mental work in, then the coming generations are going to suffer. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it, but the fact that the coming generations are 100% dependent on us. They're 100% dependent on the action that we choose to take or not take. What we do or do not do will directly affect the world that they live in. If the world is, like if after tonight, and if after this whole tour and all the other great events happening this year and the rallies and stuff, if after all that energy, all that momentum, all that potential, nobody plants a garden, nobody pulls their money out of the bank, nobody pulls their kids out of the school, which thankfully this isn't happening. But if no action takes place, then it's all just meaningless talk. And it's not really going to lead anywhere. Like, that's sort of where I'm coming from, is that we need real, tangible, practical solutions being applied around the world. Otherwise, people are going to be consumed by the system. This system is going to find every vulnerability you have. If you're dependent on your 401k, or if you're dependent on your Social Security check, or your veterans check, or whatever it may be, there are already examples of this. I mean, I don't know if Ramiro mentioned it in his talk today, but there's definitely examples of countries where they're denying people the ability to get phone service without being vaccinated, where people are being denied entry into their bank accounts without being vaccinated. The church, the mosque, etc. Like, now, this doesn't mean every country is going to respond exactly the same, but we shouldn't assume it will never happen. In fact, especially if people just lay down and let it happen, right? So to me, normalcy bias and being weary of normalcy bias is about recognizing that, look, we do have some situations in front of us to contend with. We shouldn't allow ourselves to fall into this sense of normalcy. Like I said earlier, we're traveling the country, and there are times that I'm like, man, I don't even notice COVID is going on. Like, if I didn't see people in masks, I literally would not even know anything different sometimes. Other places, it's like you can feel the kind of intensity, right? But even though that's going on, that doesn't mean, as I said earlier, that the tyrants in DC still aren't, I just read you the things earlier. They're about to have 25 million doses for all the kids around the country, age 5 to 11. It might feel pretty chill, but that doesn't mean they don't have plans going on, right? We should never fall into feeling like what we're experiencing right now is normal. Remember, last year it was the new normal. That's what they're trying to get us used to. Can everybody here agree that it should never be normal to see masks on kids? Can we all agree to that? Can we all agree that it should not be normal, that there is discussion right now, not just discussion by some random journalist or something, but former Obama Department of Homeland Security officials discussing no-fly lists for the unvaccinated? The Canadian government has announced that if you are not vaccinated by the end of this month, you won't be able to fly domestically, take a bus domestically, take a ferry domestically. And the U.S. has announced by January, all foreign travelers coming from Mexico and Canada have to be vaccinated to enter. Think about that, guys. We're moving into a time now where no foreigners are going to be able to enter the United States without being vaccinated. How long do you think until they start focusing on the domestic travel and things of that sort? They're making moves right now because if you've been paying attention, they're saying we need to get ahead of the game to make sure there's not virus spreading during holiday season when everybody starts to travel. So they're like, okay, let's just make sure the unvaccinated can't travel, right? These things are going on. These are realities. We shouldn't deny them. Now, I want to give you another example of normalcy bias. Think about this. Think about any totalitarian regime you can imagine. Be that fascist, communist, Nazi. Do you think in those circumstances, a lack of freedom of press, silencing of alternative opinions, maybe on the edge of town, you know, there's some pretty messed up things going on that you don't speak above a whisper if you don't want to be taken away in the middle of the night, right? Imagine that kind of reality for a moment. Do you think people in those circumstances never smiled, never celebrated a birthday party, never said I love you or hugged? Of course they did, because life goes on even in the most messed up circumstances. That's that normalcy bias coming in again. Even in the most messed up circumstances, our brain can find equal. It's a beautiful thing in a way. It's also very scary. Yes, you can know that people are being killed or taken to work camps or whatever, but you still got to go through the motion. You still got to live. You still got to go through the motions, right? And maybe you got kids, so you try to maintain as close to normal as possible. I don't want us to allow that to happen here, where we start to feel like things have gone away and we sort of go back to sleep. Because last year, Miriam and I saw so much action, so much movement. And I'm still seeing it this year, but to a reduced degree. Last year, people were like, hey, we're getting the heck out. We're moving to Mexico. I'm moving out of California. I'm going to Texas, or I'm getting out of New York. I'm going here, or I'm moving to a different city. People were actively thinking like, hey, where do I want to be? Because things are locking down, right? And we've had friends say, well, last year, things were crazier. Maybe I'll, get things together if the shit hits the fan. And as far as we're concerned, the shit has already hit the fan, and it's flinging around the room right now. It's hitting us on the face, and only some of us are paying attention. Guys, do y'all see this? only some of us are paying attention, though. So for us, it's already happened. There's, I don't see this as normal. Is that making sense, guys, though? What we're happening, this isn't normal. We shouldn't fall into a feeling that this is a normal situation. So defeatism, normalcy bias, and division. Watch out for those. It's 9 o'clock right now. You guys still with me? I'd say I probably got another 30 minutes, and I'm going to perform some of my music with you guys tonight if you're down. If you're down for that. All right, so let's move on then. So we talked about the traps. What can we do about what we're facing? The rest of the talk is coming from How to Opt Out of the Technocratic State. It's available there. As I said, you can download it for free at theconsciousresistance.com/how-to. The solutions we're focused on are not political. They are not legal jargon. They are not lawsuits. That is not to say if you want to fight in those avenues, you shouldn't. I'm not here to tell you what not to do. I'm here to tell you some other ideas about ways that you might potentially be able to get involved and be able to start breaking free from systems that could potentially render us without freedom and without privacy. Has anybody heard the term in the last year, you'll own nothing and be happy? Yeah. That was published by the World Economic Forum, the people behind the Great Reset, in 2016, published by Forbes magazine. And in that vision, that article, it's written by a woman from 2030, looking back at this decade and describing how things have changed, right? And of course, she's talking about how great it is that they don't own anything anymore. She's like, well, eventually we realize, why should I have my own car? Why should I have my own things? We can just rent them, or we can share them, or whatever it may be. And it paints this really scary, I guess they consider it utopia. It seems like a dystopia to me. But there's also this section in there, guys. There's this section. Has anybody actually read it? You'll own nothing to be happy? I'm going to read you this one section, just about halfway down there. It's just real short, but I think this is so interesting that they make a note of this. So this section says, they live different kinds of lives outside the city. My biggest concern is all the people who do not live in our city, those we lost on the way, those who decided that it became too much, all this technology, those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over big parts of our jobs, those who got upset with the political system and turned against it. They live different kinds of lives outside of the city. Some have formed little self-supplying communities. Others just stayed in the empty and abandoned houses of small 19th century buildings. I think that's interesting that even the World Economic Forum is acknowledging that some people aren't going to want to participate. Now, does that mean they're going to leave us alone? I don't know. I can't predict the future, but I do think that's interesting, right? But of course, I think they want us to believe that we're going to be living like on the edge of town, half starvation, Mad Max style, like fighting each other. Like, hell no, we're going to be building beautiful permaculture paradises. There's going to be free range kids running around. There's going to be fresh, clean spring water, food forests. Like, I envision another world is possible. And I think, as I said, I don't think the cities, Houston, New York City, most big cities will be safe into the long term. What does long term look like? I'm not here to predict anything. But I do think pockets of freedom can happen anywhere, right? I mean, if people really want freedom to stay alive, they'll hold it down, whether they're in New York City, Portland, or the countryside, right? So we're going to talk about that now for a moment. We're going to talk about 3 different paths you can take as you're seeing the technocracy come on. If you see what we're facing right now and you're thinking, okay, so what are my options? Seeing this, what are the steps I can take? Again, these solutions are not political, they're not easy, they involve lifestyle changes, they will involve effort and time. 3 paths. The first one is what I call holding down the fort. Now, this simply is the individual who, by choice or circumstance, so because you choose, you love this area, you're committed to it, you're connected with a lot of local activists, you guys are doing homeschooling, you're growing your own food, whatever your goals are, there's a lot of that happening, right? Whatever your interests are, you feel like you have a good community to connect with, and you see no reason to leave. Or, as some people have told me, they don't really like their local community, but because of their job or a relationship or a child or something, they can't leave. So they're where they're at. They're committed to where they're at either way. This is what I call holding down the fort. So if you're in a situation where, again, by choice or circumstance, you're committed to the current area, it's time to get to work, right? That's when it's like, if I'm staying here, okay, I need to make sure that if things do get to France, which let's hope it never does here in New York, I mean, again, we've already got some of it going on, gyms, bars, and restaurants. Well, in France, they're already denying people access to the grocery store, right? I mean, that is, to me, one of the biggest concerns. And as we're traveling the country, there's a lot of people concerned about food security. A lot of people concerned about supply chain disruption, all these different things, right? So how do you make sure, as I said earlier, that you're not living in a state of fear? Be proactive. Take as many proactive steps as possible to make sure that you aren't dependent on those systems. How many people here are dependent on the supermarket and the grocery store at the moment? The vast majority of us, right? This is a huge fucking problem. This does not lead to a good situation in the future with millions and millions of people dependent on grocery stores if those trucks stop coming, right? If those farms gotta be destroy the crops because COVID, right? That's happened the last year. You guys seen that, them destroying animals and crops because of COVID reasons, whatever. My point here is that for me, if you're gonna hold down the fort, or if you're gonna take any of these other paths, it's time to get to work. We're gonna talk about freedom cells in a moment. That's one way you can get involved. Maybe other ways, are marches, rallies. Some of you might choose to get involved with other activist groups and like Make Americans Free Again. We heard from some of them at recent stops, and they're filing lawsuits in Iowa. They've had some success, right? I'm not saying that there can't be good things to come from it. And Danny mentioned earlier, like because of some of the pressure, now Southwest is canceling their thing with the pilots, right? There's still positive news happening, but it's because people are standing up. Those things wouldn't have happened if people didn't boycott or step away or walk out or protest, right? That's why it's so important that even if you do feel alone, or even if tonight you're like, man, where's the rest of New York City? Why don't we have more people here? Well, if you're looking around, friends, what's more important than hearing me blab on for an hour is if you're looking around and you see people you don't know and you guys are local, make sure to get connected. Like somebody here start collecting an email list, pass that around, because that's what matters more. We're going to go on to Philly tomorrow. We're going to go on to the next city. But you guys who are staying here, wherever you came from, it's important that y'all get connected more than anything because y'all are going to be the ones. You gave a shit enough to be here tonight on, what day is it, Wednesday? Thanks for being here. You took the first step. Like, don't let this go to waste, right? Make some fruit out of tonight. Get involved in some way, right? Who has a space, a backyard or a front yard or any kind of space that they can donate towards a community garden? Like who's willing to do that, right? These are the kinds of things that if we don't have conversations, if we don't start being proactive, we don't get connected, don't know our neighbors. And I know that sounds really crazy in a place like New York City where everybody's just in their own thing. I mean, it's like that in Houston too. But to me, that's the only solution, right? So we're going to talk more about freedom cells, holding down the fort. Does anybody feel like that's their path at the moment? They're holding down the fort where they're currently living, right? You're committed to that? Okay, great. So those would, if you know people locally who are committed to that, those are the people you want to get connected to. The second strategy, and again, these can kind of be used interchangeably, but the second one is what we call exit and build. Exit and build is if you're looking at your current situation, if you're like, there's no community here, I've been trying for a year, I can't get connected to anybody, you know, nobody wants to come out and do anything, all they just want to talk, they don't want to get, you know, active, and nobody wants to grow food or any of the things I'm interested in. Or maybe you're somebody who feels like, hey, I'm literally the only person in my community. We get these emails in the Freedom Zone over, guys, there's nobody in my community. Have you found somebody? And sometimes there's a lot of people, they just haven't got plugged in. They haven't met the right people yet. And then all of a sudden they discover there's all these groups and there's all this great stuff going on, and they get plugged in. It's beautiful. But sometimes you are in a situation where there's just not anybody like-minded with your specific goals in your community. And in those cases, you might want to vote with your feet, which is sometimes easier said than done. I recognize that. But again, I'm trying to think more of like long-term solutions, not necessarily like, okay, well, moving, that's going to involve a lot of momentary discomfort. That's going to be a lot of work in the moment right now. It's going to be like, oh man, maybe I got to take the kids out of school. I got to do this and that. But I'm trying to think, what's going to keep me, myself, my family free and happy and thriving into the future? In some places, we have to accept, and I'm not saying this about New York City per se, but I think some places on this planet and in this country are not going to be conducive to freedom. There might be large parts of California that very much forget what freedom means, right? In other places. But even there's a lot of activists trying to fight, trying to push back, and trying to organize, right? So you might be in a situation where you think the best move is for you to leave, to exit and build elsewhere. And whether you exit from one place and then you move to the other place, because maybe you're looking at the town over, the state over, the country over, and you're like, you know what? These guys are already homeschooling. They got freedom cells. They've got counter-economic markets. They're pulling their money out of the bank. They're all invested in crypto and silver. Like, there's a lot of good stuff happening here. I want to move to that place, and I want to contribute my skills, right? Because also, it takes a lot of work to just start an activist group or something from the ground up. You know, some of you know this by experience. Maybe you feel like, I don't have a year, 2 years to just build a group from nothing. Maybe I want to go somewhere where the work's already been done and just jump in and plug in and contribute what I can, right? So that's what we call exit and build. And whether you exit and build, you exit from one place, once you get there, again, it's time to build. So if you're holding down the fort, you're exiting the build, either way, you need to get involved locally. That to me is the key, is on the local level. Why do I stress that? Because while we have groups like the United Nations and the World Economic Forum, these huge, seem so far away, right? Like, it's just not even connected to our daily reality, right? But they're obviously affecting our reality. You have groups like that, the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, but the way they implement this is on the local level. They implement it by the mayors, or by the city councils, or by the town councils, in real subtle ways that most people aren't paying attention to. They call them resiliency councils, or sustainability councils, all these different ways that they're implementing this agenda on the local level. In that same way, we need to be working locally. We need to be organizing locally, right? We need to be making sure that what we're trying to do essentially is to build a parallel network to what they're creating. I'm not here to say, let's go beg these people to please accept us back into your society, when they're clearly saying, we don't want you. I'm not going to beg them to let me back in. And I'm also not convinced that trying to violently overthrow them is the answer either. And the third path, we talked about holding down the fort, exiting and building. The third path, I'm not much interested in this one, and it seems none of you are either. I just call this one simply apathy is death. Because choosing to do nothing in the face of what we're facing, and I don't know a better term for what we're facing than evil, choosing to do nothing in the face of that evil, I think would be a psychological and a moral and a spiritual death. To do nothing in the face of that. I think, again, I know that I don't operate from the assumption thinking that any of us here agree on everything. In fact, I love that. I think that's our strength, as I was saying earlier. But I do think that we are generally kind of aware of the direction things are headed. And if we see that, and we don't do anything, and I'm going to say this more than a couple times tonight, we truly are failing the coming 7 generations. And I believe also we're failing our ancestors, who worked very hard to get us to where we are right now. No matter where you are from this planet, all of our ancestors had to go through struggles and some real life shit to get us here. And I think we failed them by allowing the concepts of individual liberty and self-ownership to die. Because that's what could happen. That's really is what at risk. I mean, it doesn't take long for the state to program the next generation. And before you know it, once you silence enough people and you delete things off the internet, and you burn all the books and whatever, again, maybe this sounds a little too far off for some people, but I think it's staring us in the face.
The other thing that's staring us in the face is this beautiful spiritual like awakening. Danny talked about freedom cells. We're going to start talking about freedom cells in a moment. We literally have seen this exponential growth. It went from about 2,000 to 3,000 people around the world to now 27,000 people around the world just on the website, tens and thousands through Telegram. We really have no idea at this point. We try to create a directory, but there's no way we can keep up with all of it. There's some in Belgium, in Spain, in Africa, Portugal, Germany, Australia, India, Mexico, all over the U.S., and some at different levels of organization. Some are super active, getting things done, got food stored up, they're growing their own food, they're doing lots of good things. Others are just getting started. But the point is, there's never been more people seeking solutions in the last 12 years that I've been doing this. I don't know about you guys, but I see a lot more people asking questions than there were even just 2 years ago, 5 years ago, which is a beautiful thing. And thankfully, people are seeking solutions. The unfortunate thing is people have to be threatened to seek solutions. Again, people are comfortable, but then when they feel under threat, they start to act. I'm trying to ask you, let's not wait till we're under threat again. If the threat doesn't feel so immediate at the moment, we're not locked down in our homes at the moment, but it doesn't mean it's totally gone away, it's disappeared. I'm saying let's be proactive so that to me, the more proactive I am, the less fear-based I need to be, the more people I can help, because if I'm in a place of feeling good and taken care of, then I can offer more help to somebody else. But if I'm in a scarcity mode, it's hard for me to want to help other people, right? I want to make sure that when things progress, if and when they do, this direction, that for one, I'm not plugged into it, but also when other people need help, that I have the opportunity to do that, right? I can't save or help everybody. I'm not attempting to, but I do know that there are going to be a lot more of our brothers and sisters who are going to need help. And I want to figure out, how do we bridge those gaps? How do we get all those teachers who are being fired and the nurses and all the different people, the people in the music industry, everybody who's lost their jobs? How do we find those people and connect them with the people who need to hire them? There's going to be a lot of parents unschooling now that they're taking homeschooling and unschooling since they're taking their kids out of school. Some of those teachers might be worth, investigating, connecting them with parents. They're going to need work, right? But we have to build those systems. And this is why I say this isn't easy. This isn't some quick fix. The ideas that we're talking about with the counter economy, with freedom cells, with parallel structures, they take time. They are generational. And I do see the seeds and the beginning of them right now. I know that I've probably, if I live healthy, I've got 50 to 60, more years of my life that I can dedicate to this fight, this effort. But even then, I don't know if I'll see the fruition of all of our work right now in my lifetime. But I know if we don't start now, then the people coming after us right now, like, for example, I have 6 nieces and nephews, and 2 of them are 2 years old and younger. And if we don't create an alternative, the only world they will know is one where there's masks on kids, where when they want to go see their friends for spring break, they got to show their vaccine passport at the state line. Like, that's the world for them if we don't create an alternative. And I refuse to accept that. Like, I think there needs to be an alternative. Most of us, we weren't given that option. We were born into this world and told, here's your Social Security, here's your birth certificate, welcome to this world. There's one way to be happy, live this thing, and anything outside of that is crazy, right? Now, there could be the option of, do you want to go the smart city path? Do you want to go the Great Reset? Here's this technocracy. It's super convenient, but you're going to have to give up your privacy, maybe give up some of your freedoms. Or do you want to come over here and see what we're building, right? None of us know exactly what it looks like, but I see more and more people than I've seen that in the last 5 years, 6 years that I've been talking about freedom cells and getting out of these systems, I see more people than ever actually like, this is probably the answer, because people are realizing this system is coming after us, right? So I want to talk about what I call the freedom formula. This is also from How to Opt Out. Now, we know we reject their vision, right? The Great Reset, technocracy. I said this earlier. So then it's important to hold a vision in your mind of what you are aiming for, right? Because if you know it's not that, if we have a different destination, we need to know our destination to get there, right? So, feel free to shout. What comes to mind when you hear the word freedom? Inalienable rights. Anyone else? Individual liberty? Autonomy, right? Okay, so these are all good concepts related to freedom, right? I want to encourage everybody to think even deeper about what freedom means to you. Spend tonight, the coming days, and really reflect on it. We need to really, truly understand what that looks like. For some people, that's like, hey, I want to get a ranch, I want to get my own, land and grow with the kids. Or maybe it's like, I want to live in the city, but I want to be safe. I want to have these different things. You need to know what that vision is to really, truly attain it. Let me share with you guys my vision of freedom. It's called the Conscious Agora. It's about 20 to 25 acres. There's 2 freedom cells, about 15 to 16 people there. We have the free-range kids and the fresh spring water, an organic food forest. There's animals there, animal sanctuary actually.
You know, we're not trying to create utopia. We know that none of us are perfect, but we are emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature adults that know that any problems arise, that we can work through them. We want to be an example for other communities. We want the conscious Agora to become a network of free communities around the world. And we have different values and principles. Like, that's something I spent years thinking about, writing about, and now in the process of getting ready to create, to buy land. That's why we're in Mexico. We're getting ready. We've been planning to go to Mexico for years, and COVID just sort of encouraged us to accelerate our plans. Instead of waiting for a couple of years from now, let's do it now. So we've been in Mexico the last year and a half looking for land, and we're getting closer and closer to that, to beginning this conscious Agora idea. I spent a lot of time really thinking about that, to get to smell it, see it, taste it, right? Like, that's the level of understanding of what freedom means to you you need to have if you're going to achieve it. You know, this is the power of the imagination and visualization, right? If you're an artist, spend some time drawing it, write it down. Like, what does it realistically look like? Are you talking about living on the same land as other people, living next to each other, sharing a house, living in the same town? What does community actually look like to you? Or what is your homestead? Maybe it is a community. Maybe it's just you and your immediate family. Maybe it's just you. What does that look like? Spend some time getting to know your vision of freedom. That's the first part of the freedom formula. What is your vision of freedom? Get to know that very deeply. The second part is, what are you willing to do to get it, right? So once you know the vision and you can hold the vision deep in your mind's eye and you can see it, you know it, you understand, you know it's going to become a reality. You can see it in your mind. You have to align that vision with physical action, with actually being active behind it, right? What are you willing to do to get it? I talked earlier about a disconnection between thoughts, words, and actions. You can have the intention and say, my vision is off-grid community, several families growing our own food, raising animals, doing these beautiful things. It's gonna involve all these different systems I'm gonna have to learn about. We're gonna take the kids out of the school. But then in your what are you willing to do to get it, you actually haven't taken time to research that permaculture thing you keep hearing about. And you know you need to pull the kids out of the school to get to this vision you want, but you haven't even looked up homeschooling or unschooling or what resources are available, right? You know you want to do it, but you're not taking any practical steps towards it, right? If you want to attain this vision that you hold in your mind's eye, I believe you must put everything in front of that, right? And I get that not everybody has the lifestyle that I have to dedicate your every day to this thing. Some people are working 6-7 days a week, 70, 80 hours a week sometimes. Like, I get that. My family is very working class. My brother and sister, they're those people. They're working just to take care of their family. They don't see a way out. They know what's coming. They're not sure. So I'm trying to have a proactive conversation with them, right? Trying to talk to them. Like, what does that look like? How are you going to take care of the kids? Don't wait till it happens. How can I help you? What are the resources you need? Can you downsize? Is there, what are the options available? You just need to have the dialogue. So if you want to understand your vision of freedom, you actually want to achieve it, you need to put in that effort. You might be tired from working all day, but if you can put 30 minutes in at the end of your day to research permaculture, research whatever it is, the skills that you need to do to move your vision closer, take that 20 minutes, that 30 minutes at the end of your day, and then rest well. Do that for 1 week, and you've just gained 2.5 hours of extra knowledge you didn't have before, right, on that subject. That's progress. That's moving things forward. And I know this might sound like common sense, but to me, this is the practical level of thinking we need with the situation we're facing, right? Just marching and just protesting and just voting and just talking and posting memes online isn't going to do it. That's not going to fix it. You can march and you can protest and you can rally and you can speak out and do all those things because it's important and it's vital that people know we're out there and that they're not alone. But do that while also trying to exit from these systems as much as possible and to work towards your vision. You got your vision of freedom, what you're willing to do to get it. I've spent the last 12 years and the last 5 years with the Conscious Agora committed to trying to bring this to fruition. And I see it becoming a reality more and more every day because I put everything I have into it. And I'm working on manifesting that, not just through prayer and meditation, but through physical action. So what is your vision of freedom? What are you willing to do to get that? And that equals your actual experience of freedom. Which is like, maybe you're like, no, duh. Yeah, if you don't do anything, you're not going to get it, right? But again, think about it in practical terms. You have this vision. I'm not going to get swept up in the technocracy. I'm not doing social credit score. My kids aren't getting vaccinated. We're not eating that crap food. We're not doing these things. Okay, so what are you going to do? What does that look like? Think about it. Get to know it. Okay, now what are the steps it's going to take to get there? Okay, now are you putting progress into making that happen? One of my other books that we don't have here present, that you can download for free, is called The Holistic Self-Assessment. And this process I'm describing is essentially what that's about. Look at these different areas of your life and see where you have inconsistencies. See the ways that you might have vulnerabilities that these systems can squeeze on you. If you are dependent on their systems, and there are people, very realistically, who are like, look, I don't trust Big Pharma, I don't want Western medicine, but I got diabetes, and I need my insulin, I need, I need this thing, and I can't afford it on my own, so I need insurance. It's a very likelihood in some places, and I think it is happening in some countries, that insurance will either charge higher rates for the uninsured or maybe for the unvaccinated or not even insure them, right? How is a person who's on diabetes and I don't know. We don't have all the perfect solutions at the moment, but the point is we need to start thinking about this shit because these people are squeezing how they can. So knowing your vision of freedom, doing everything you can to achieve it, and you will achieve it. If you don't, if you only half-ass it, you're going to get a half-ass version of what your vision of freedom is. That's what I call the freedom formula. And I just feel like it's so important to think about it in those practical terms to really understand that these people have a vision. They have a clear vision. And a lot of times we spend our time obsessing over their vision. Anybody heard of the Greater Reset, the People's Reset that we launched in the last year? Thank you guys if you participated or watched in some way. As Ramiro said earlier, it became a worldwide movement. We're doing another one in January, the Greater Reset 3. We're going to have James Corbett, Catherine Austin Fitz, Fort Foster Gamble, a lot of really awesome speakers again, talking about solutions in January in Mexico and Texas. So the reason we did that is because we didn't want to just obsess over what's the World Economic Forum going to talk about this week. That's what a lot of the alternative media does sometimes. It's important to report on things, but it seems like we become obsessed with just talking about these people. But what the hell are we going to do about it? We're at a point now, again, knowing is not enough. We need to be proactive. So the freedom formula. That leads me to freedom cells. Because the reality is this, guys, none of us can do this on our own. There's this lone wolf myth that's out there. Really, the government uses that lone wolf myth as like lone wolf terrorism, but really those things are all just FBI entrapment, false flags. Just had to say that. To throw that in there. It's the reality, though. But there's no lone wolf. None of us can truly do it on our own. I am a proud individualist. I love my space, my privacy, but I know I need you guys. I know that what happens in Houston is somewhat dependent on what happens in New York. And that programs and ideas that work in Houston or in Iowa or some of these other places could be adapted and applied here. That's the part of the Freedom Zone Network that I think is so beautiful. As I said earlier, we've gone from 3,000 people to 27,000 people on the website. We have no idea how many people on Telegram, and who knows how many people who are just doing it, and they're not telling anybody on the internet. They're just getting organized, right? It's actually happening. People who are wanting to be proactive are taking steps towards that. And on the road, we've met people who said, last year I felt alone, and I met people through the Freedom Zone Network. We're buying land together now. We pulled our kids out of school together. We pulled our money out of the banks. We're investing in, crypto or precious metals, or we're starting our own local currency. People who want to be proactive are taking steps to be proactive. So I invite you to recognize that nobody else is going to come hand the solutions and just put them in your lap, that it's up to you to create them. And we're trying to create that infrastructure. If you haven't been on freedomcells.org, I invite you to check it out. You create a free profile, put your skills, your interests, your goals, add your location, not your home address, but your neighborhood. Use the member maps and the cell map to search and find people in your area. People are already doing this. People are finding pre-existing groups. They're connecting to the real world. There's a Telegram page that connects you to the Telegram Freedom Cell Network. And as I said, people who are proactive are taking advantage of this. We've seen people also traveling the country and using the Freedom Cell Network to plug into other like-minded people and connect. Like, hey, I'm in town. I heard you guys have a Freedom Cell. Is there any events? Can I come? Where's a good market? Where are the people and the places I should plug into? I can see that evolving over time as well. As some places get more oppressive, things like the Freedom Cell Network can be a way for people to plug in and find the businesses that aren't going to, ask you about vaccines or ask you about masks, right? That's another thing we've been seeing around the country. People are building these directories. This is a good thing you could do for your neighborhood. Just a couple of people go out for a few hours, go up to the businesses with those flyers you guys have probably seen saying, this business does not discriminate based on age, race, sex, gender, creed, religion, vaccinated or unvaccinated, masked or unmasked, right? Just go into a business and say, hey, we're creating a directory for our community. We're going to share this among our community and let them know which businesses to support that won't discriminate. Would you be willing to put this up in your window? In Santa Cruz and Modesta and a couple other places we did it, they had an 80% success rate. Wow. Now, there was one business that was like, no, I'm not going to do that. There was another business owner who said, I'm with you guys. You can put me in the directory, but I don't want to put it up, because he had previously on his own announced on his restaurant's Facebook page saying, hey, we won't discriminate against anybody. And he got death threats from that compassionate crowd. And yeah, so my point is there are proactive steps like that we can do in our communities to start knowing who are the people we want to work with, who are the businesses we want to support, right? What does this actually look like? That's about being proactive. That's building the counter economy. That's what the Freedom Cell Network is all about. Because again, I don't believe in political change is going to be the real change that we're seeking. I don't think violence is the answer, and clearly apathy is not the answer either. So for me, that leaves competing with this system directly, building something better, building parallel structures. Again, this is going to take time. We're going to need those nurses. We're going to need those doctors. We're going to need the pilots. We're going to need all the people who are saying, hell no, I'm not going to take this. We need to recruit them into what we're building, right? We need those skills. And that, to me, that's kind of the answer. So whether you're talking about buying land in the countryside, upstate New York, or staying in the heart of the city, we need to get plugged in with each other. We need to build support networks. That's the whole idea of Freedom Cells, is forming these groups of 7 to 8 other people who are on equal footing. You share the knowledge, you share the ideas. Maybe you all realize, hey, let's make sure that everybody in our group knows how to do the Heimlich maneuver in case, somebody's choking. The other day, I literally had a near-death experience. No shit. It would have been the saddest end to my life in this tour possible. Like, God, I would have been so sad. If, after all this, I die choking on a piece of, vegan chicken, some, thing. It was just too big, and it got lodged in my throat. Thankfully, Ramiro literally saved my life and did the Heimlich maneuver the other day. Thank you. It would have been a very sad end to this tour. And my point is, the idea was Freedom Cells, again, having that preparedness. If we had a Freedom Cell, let's imagine we have a group of friends, right? We're sort of a loose Freedom Cell. But Ramiro's a super active guy. He knows how to do CPR, Heimlich maneuver. He knows how to do Linux and all these different projects. And we keep leaning on him every week. We're just basically, he becomes the leader, right? And then one day he decides he needs to move or leave, or he just doesn't like us anymore. Next thing we know, all the skills in our group are gone, because none of us took the time to learn them, right? Instead, the idea with the Freedom Cells is that the knowledge is distributed, the power is distributed. So you decide your group all wants to have those safety skills. You take a CPR class together. Now you got 7 other people who know that. You do the Heimlich maneuver. You got 7 other people who do that. You all decide you want to learn more about permaculture. You decide to chip in and buy a permaculture course together and learn together. You decide to go, do some volunteering at the urban farm to learn a little bit about. You guys decide, you know what, we do want to get off the big tech and get some of these privacy phones, or at least start using encrypted communication. So everybody gets on that. This is your support system. This is the idea that in times of need, and I think that's where we're at, this is the people that you want to be able to lean on and build on. And as we build this on the local neighborhood level, that's the beautiful thing, is it's starting to happen now, where there's the New Jersey Freedom Cell, and there's the New York Freedom Cell, and there's some of them kind of interconnected for regional gatherings and bigger gatherings. So this concept is pretty much unlimited in its potential. Thankfully, people are using it, because a couple of years ago when we did the first tours, there were some people who thought it was a cool idea, but they didn't see the urgency of it. Now people are like, yeah, I think I need to know my neighbor, because if my neighbor thinks I'm the enemy, that's probably not a very safe situation if things get worse, right? We need to make sure that our neighbors know that we're not the enemy, and that, in fact, we want to work with them if they can respect our bodily autonomy, right? If they can respect our individual freedom. And I think for the most part, guys, a lot of people do. Yes, there are the hardcore people who bought in and hook, line, and sinker to the whole agenda, but I think most people are generally just, their compassion has been weaponized. Not everybody is just an afraid, scared sheeple. A lot of people just think they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's a compassionate thing to wear masks and get vaccines. Every time they hear about this alternative information, you keep trying to share them. A fact checker tells them that it's fake, right? They can't quite get out of that bubble that has been created around them. So they're not bad people. They're not diehard statists who love the government. They just generally believe they're doing what is best. And I think that's important to remember, to have that empathy for them again. Now we're going to wrap up here. We're going to bring it full circle. I'll just throw out a couple examples about how to exit and build, just to make it more clear. Because when I talk about holding down the fort, that's with location. Exiting and build, that's location. But whether you stay where you're at or you move, exiting and build is also about getting out of the systems that don't align with our values. That's what I was talking about earlier, aligning thoughts, words, and actions. So for me, the food system is completely unsustainable. It's violent. It's just not effective. And I think it's also, there's a lot of problems. Pesticides, we can go on and on about that. I try not to support that mainstream food production system whenever possible. I still do use grocery stores, especially while traveling. Obviously, I don't have my garden here with us on the road. But when we live in Mexico, we have the opportunity to connect to local farmers and local markets and know where the food's coming from, right? I try to take steps whenever possible to not be dependent on that system, to not support Monsanto's and the different companies that I know are doing things that don't align with my values. That's the food. And also, I try to research solutions like permaculture. When it comes to technology, I don't like Google. I don't like Microsoft. I don't like Amazon. So I do my best not to use their projects. The whole time we've been traveling, I've been using This is Ramiro's phone, by the way. This is the above phone. It's a privacy phone. As we've been traveling me and Miriam around the country, we're using open source decentralized maps. We're not using Google Maps to travel, right? And that's like, it's a learning curve. There's been some times like, what the hell is that thing saying? We missed a turn, damn it. But it's a part, like, to me, doing that is worth trying to have privacy, trying to strive to live in line with my principles, right? I could go on and on. The education system, just in case people aren't aware of this, the education system was screwed up before COVID. It's not just the masks. Like, the system is a propaganda system. Anybody heard the Malcolm X quote about we should never let our enemies educate our children? Definitely something to think about. In that area, homeschooling, unschooling, forced schooling, community schooling. And again, I'm not here to say it's just super easy to pull all the kids out of school. Got two brother and sister with 3 kids each. That feels pretty far away for them. But I'm trying to be proactive and help plug them in with other families that are doing homeschooling so they don't feel alone, so it doesn't feel so insurmountable, right? The point is we have to be proactive and think about these areas. Do that holistic self-assessment. Look at these different areas of your life. Your food. Where do you get your food from? What is the impact of that? You know, where does it come from? Your money, how you make your money, where you spend your money, what are you supporting through it? Your relationships, right? Economics is a huge aspect. How many people are still using the mainstream banking system? I'm not here to tell anybody what to do, but all I do know is these people robbed you blind in 2008. They got a bunch of money during COVID. And I don't know what it's going to take for us to stop handing them our money, right? Again, convenience, these other things. I'm not here to judge. If you're feeling some type of way, reflect on that. Is there an alternative solution? Have you researched the local credit union yet? Have you stuffed your money under your mattress yet? Whatever alternative is best for you, you decide. The point is, you know, just for awareness sake, for those who don't understand, the fractional reserve banking system and the mainstream banking system, when you put your $1,000 check in them, they don't have to hold any of it in reserves anymore. They used to hold like 5 or 10%, but the Federal Reserve in 2020 actually announced they don't have to hold any reserves now, right? So literally, you give them your $1,000 check, and they can be investing that in all kinds of things. That they might be investing that in pipelines that you're protesting against. They could be investing that in surveillance projects. And you better rest assured, all of the big banks and MasterCard and Visa are partners with the World Economic Forum, the people launching the Great Reset. What will it take for us to say, these institutions don't deserve my money? It might be difficult, might be hard, might have to change some things around, might have to learn a new system, but I don't know. To me, it seems worth us trying to, again, live in line with our values. So that's my main message with this. With everything we're facing, if we choose to do nothing, if we choose to be silent, we choose to sit still, and we're not proactive, and we say it's too hard, it's too difficult, it involves working with other people, learning new things, it's much easier to sit on my ass and stay home. And guess what? I guess we deserve what's coming. But the young ones don't. The coming generations don't. They deserve for us to step up for the moment that I believe we're here for, to step up to the plate and to shine and to really lead humanity into this new direction. Maybe that sounds far off. Maybe I'm thinking too big for some of you guys. But I think this is the fight for our lives, really. I think this is probably the most important time in human history, and it feels like we're dealing with some unprecedented circumstances with the potential to create even more beautiful, unprecedented circumstances, to give humanity something we've never seen before. I'm going to wrap up by reminding you guys about the 7 generations. Our indigenous communities, this is what we're taught to think about every single day, to think of how our actions impact the planet and the people around us right here in this moment, but also those coming after us, right? And as I alluded to earlier, it's not just about those coming after us. It is that. You know, think about this. If you're the beginning of the 7 generations, you've got your children, your grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-grandchildren, you know, on and on, 7 generations back. The people, you will never meet these people. But the world and the reality they have is counting on you right now. Now think about the other way, the end of the 7 generations. So you have your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, great-grandparents, right? All those people who came 7 generations before you, and all the work and the struggles and the things they had to go through to put you here right now. To me, we fail both the coming generations and our ancestors if we choose not to act in these moments. And I want to just invite you to make a commitment tonight to not let this vision come to pass without putting everything you have into this. I'm not here to tell you what to do or where to go from here, but I am hoping that if you're aware of some of these issues, or if they're new to you, you will at the least pursue the knowledge and say, you know what? I don't know much about all facts. I'm hearing about them for the first time. I need to go research this to see if this makes sense to me. And maybe that will be the beginning of your journey. And if you do begin that journey, we're happy to welcome you here and say, friend, it's time to focus on solutions. So I'm here to say, guys, it's time to focus on solutions more than ever. Knowing things are bad is not enough. Knowing that things are going to potentially get worse is not enough. Sitting by and doing nothing is not enough.
wherever you act from, my advice is to get as free as possible from these systems so that you are not dependent on them and your children are not dependent on them, because from that place, you likely will own nothing and maybe be happy. I don't know. I don't think so. But the final point I want to make is to bring it back about why we do the meditation, why I call this the conscious resistance, why I shared my story of going to prison and all that stuff. Because I do think, guys, this is a spiritual battle. Everything I touched on was about the physical realm, but also add to your toolkit, to your toolbox, continuing to do that inner journey, that healing journey, right? Continuing to see the steps that need to take place for us to create a better humanity. I said it earlier that the key root word of revolution is to revolve, to go in circles. I really think that if we fall into that trap, the traps that that past generations have done, division, the defeatism, and the normalcy bias, that we won't create this vision we have. But I do have full faith knowing that there's people like yourself who are committed to this just as much as I am, all around the country and all around the planet, that we have the potential to create something much better. Thank you guys for being here with me tonight. I'm just going to end the way that I always do with my positive affirmation. If you want to say it with me, and maybe we can shout it loud in this park and get some more people to hear us and feel it. This is an affirmation I used when I was getting out of prison and just sort of in that tough time. And if it resonates with you, please repeat after me. You know, if it doesn't, that's fine. I prefer for it not to be a mindless mantra, but something that people say from their heart. So if you feel inclined, please repeat these words. I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am beautiful.
I am beautiful.
I am free.
I am free.
Thank you guys so much. Hey, y'all got time for some music? Y'all got time for a little music? Can I still do that? Yeah, I want to let you guys know, I think there's a sign-up sheet. We all send it on an email list. Also, if you want to sign up for the Conscious Resistance email list, we got that up there. We are going to be giving away one of these privacy phones at the end of the tour. So if you want to sign up for our list, put a little check mark next to your name. And at the end of the tour, we're going to select somebody who can start their journey to privacy. And yeah, guys, I perform music under the name 33. I'm about to perform some of this for you guys. If you go to soundcloud.com/33 is here today. I just released a brand new mixtape, 6 songs available for you for free. We also have them for sale if you want, your own personal copy. Come check us out at the table. Much love to you guys for being here with us. I'm gonna jam with you now, so feel free to come up here and get in my face.
Music mode.
There's a list going on around if you want to sign up for the New York City Freedom Cell Telegram group. On a steno pad going around.
There's a pad going around in the back, and if anybody wants to get into the New York City Freedom Cell Telegram group, just add your name and information to that. We'll pop you into the group. All right, guys. Thank you for being here. Let me take out my hair and transform. Now I'm 33. Okay. All right. All right, guys. Come jam with me. This song is called Reflection. It features the words of John Trudell. Much love for being here with us.
We have to reestablish our identity. We have to understand who we are and where we sit in the order of the world.
Feel free to come up closer if you want. I would love
People who have
to
created the system and
closer with you.
perpetuate the system. They are out of balance. They have made us out of balance.
I woke up this morning feeling I had something to say. I got doubts in my mind. It's time to let them fly away. It's time to unlearn poison and heal broken hearts. Go back to the end. It's time for a fresh start. This is the place we can atone for our sins. This is the place where our hero's journey begins. A space between love and hate, where there's no escape from our fate. Rather than be irate, let's create, let's build the better world we know is possible. I've got no fear, cause we can overcome any obstacle. I stare all my demons in the face, I'll show you what's possible. I send love from my heart, I'm intuitive, not illogical. It's just that lately I've been searching for deeper meaning. I'm sick of drugs, booze, mindless sex, and criminal scheming. Feels like I should have more at this point in time. I'm talking knowledge, not money, I'm trying to feed my mind.
See, we are power.
You guys,
They deal in violence.
these are the words of John Trudell, native activist. I need you to come up close. I came here just to get a hug from you. Come up in my, yeah. You can get closer, we can get closer, we can get intimate. I got another verse for you guys. Feel free to come in here. Let's do this again. Open up all three of my eyes and fly to the heavens. During my meditation, I see my life in chapters of 7. I connect to my inner child to heal my wounds. I recall those I've lost and those gone too soon. My life flashes before me, a collage of joy and pain. I recall the highs, the lows. I swear I'm going insane. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this journey. Spent too much time worrying about things that don't concern me. No more time wasted, not chasing my dreams. I wake up every day knowing this world ain't what it seems. We gotta make our own path, we gotta find our own meaning, cause we can't be sure, we might be dreaming. All I know is when I look in your eyes, I see myself. I'm just a reflection of your impression of my higher self. Could it be our whole reason for being, our existence is a lesson that teaches over and over until we get this. We are powerful, we are beautiful, and we are free. Shake up your change to what lies and now you see. Grandfather, help us remember where we come from. Grandmother, walk with us until the battle is won. You guys, I invite you to listen to these words from John Trudell. Let them enter your heart.
We are a natural part of the earth. We are an extension of that natural energy which is spirit and which is power. That is natural power. And just as it takes millions and billions of elements to make a blizzard to happen, or to make the earthquake, to make the earth to move, then it's going to take millions and billions of us. We are power. We have that power.
Say it with me. We are power.
We are
We
power.
can do better than that. We are power.
We are power.
Yeah, every single day we are power. As John Trudell said, we come from the earth, we come from the stars. We are stronger than this agenda, right? There's something deeper within each of us that calls us to this moment to come together and work together. That's what we're about here, guys. So I appreciate you spending some time with me here in the talks and the meditation. I'm going to play a couple more songs if you guys are down for that. You down for another one?
Woo!
Again, I perform under the name 33, not because I'm a Freemason, as some people have suspected recently. I'm 36 years old now. I started rapping when I was 33 years old. That's the year my birth father died of a drug overdose, and this music has been kind of like a way for me to process a lot of that. And I love hip-hop as a storytelling medium when it's done right. And so it's just been a really healing process for me. Also, we have 33 vertebrae. Some people believe Christ descended at the age of 33. Some people believe Buddha became enlightened at age 33. And also, I kind of like to troll people. So that's why I call myself 33. This next song is called Same Mother. Feel free to get in here close. And yeah, you know, just get groovy. Let's do this one. This is called Same Mother. Oop. There we go. There we go. All right, here we go. Come up close if you haven't. Come get in my face. Come give me a hug. I don't know when I'm coming back to New York City. It's kind of crazy here. I'm hoping to come back and celebrate with you guys. All right, let's do this one. It's called Same Mother. I'm living with hip-hop kings waiting to be crowned. Another election passes and you're still bringing on clowns. You think you made a difference, but you're a fake resistance. Keep voting for evil and you might get sick. How many times must we play this game? They're washing our brains, they're watching us kill ourselves, we're under siege. And I don't mean to offend, but if you hate free speech, you can get fucked. You can get fucked with the rest of the mob. And all those who treat politicians like guys. You need to wake up, join the fight against evil. And I don't mean Trump or the average people. I'm talking about the hidden hand, the deepest state. The ones you don't see, who are robbing for your plate. The gangsters, murderers, and mobsters. We're being with our psychopathic monsters. The peddlers in the Vatican are doing it again. The CIA, the NSA, and the Zionist clan. They got the plan to keep you trapped in fear. Can't you see my friends? The great reset is here. And I'm not talking about some rich man's plan. I'm saying we can manifest the promised land. If we stop hating and killing each other, maybe we'll see that we have the same mother. Thank you guys. I'm just trying to say that, you know, I don't think it's a cliche to say that anywhere we cut it, we come from the same place. We have the same source. So maybe it's time for us to put some of those differences aside. Let's do it again. I should slow down the bus, scare your way. I don't want to lose you before you hear what I have to say. I ain't got no diamonds, I ain't got no drip. All I got's my body, soul, and drop I roll with.
Only thing I do is spit the truth and bear reality. It's a neat trick, manifest and you'll see. Anything you want, you can have health or wealth. It's time to wake up and love yourself. Love yourself, release the demons you've offended. They're gonna hold you down, man. It's an early ending. I promise you, we deserve better than we seem. It's up to us to overcome and create our dreams. I've been to the bottom, met my demons and fought them. Hiding from my trauma, man, drugs that got them. Bury my pain and dope till I can't stand up. I might be puking, but keep pouring in my cup. But that wasted life, it's just a waste of life. We need to wake up and see we are made of light. I know in my heart, we're here for a purpose. I can see the truth rising to the surface. Don't you see it? The future's in our hands. It's time to find out where everyone stands. If we stop hating and killing each other, maybe we'll see that we have the same mother.
Woo!
Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate that. I'm gonna kick into this next song. Now, I was saying earlier that a lot of my music, it does come from, some dark places in my life. I'm definitely not the Derrick Rose that most of you guys have got to know over the last years is not the Derrick Rose that I was 15 years ago, much like many of you, right? In my dark places, I caused a lot of other people trauma. As they say, hurt people. I made mistakes. I hurt other people. I was hurt by people. I learned a lot, though. I feel like I had to go through that to be here with you guys today. So ultimately, I'm blessed and I'm grateful. But this music is a way for me to kind of connect to that past and to anybody who might still be struggling with some of these dark times and kind of, heal through it. So this song is about that. This song is about when I got out of prison, I realized that there's a lot of other people in cages and they just don't even realize it. We're going to talk about that. So this song is called Another Cage. Thank you guys for being here with me. We are all doing time one way or another, right? Check. Thank you guys. We got cages in our minds, cages in our hearts, even physical cages. But at the end of the day, only you can set yourself free. I got a story that I need to tell. It's about rock bottom and living in hell. I'm losing my mind, but I'm finding myself. So many sleepless nights, man, I ain't living well. I'm trying to find my balance, I'm trying to find my center. But I keep on living the life of a sinner. I like pushing limits, so I'm searching for the edge. But if I keep doing dope, man, I'm gonna end up dead. I'm headed down the same path as my father. I'm not having fun, I don't know why I bother. The apple don't rot too far from the tree. Does that mean he's what I'm destined to be? I'm trying to be a better man and carve my own path. I tried drug dealing, but that ain't where it's at. Now I'm locked in a cage, doing time behind bars. I got better things to do, man, I'm aiming for the stars. Yeah, it's just another day, just another cage. Alright? Some of you know what I mean? Yeah, it's just another day, and just another cage. Alright, let's go again. Now I'm free from the prison and my journey begins. As I start a new life, the old one ends. So this is what it feels like to be alive. This might be the first time that I'm whole inside. But now I see my people, they're living as slaves. They hide from the truth and they don't see the cage. And I walked out the prison walls because my battle's been won. But I didn't get out of cage just to go back to one. Sometimes a prison is a place in your mind. If you look deep enough, you just might find the doubts and the fears that are holding you back. Watch out for the darkness, I promise it's a trap. Maybe it's time we face the opposition. Let's take a look at society's division. It's time to recognize our place in opposition, because there's plenty of blame from where I'm sitting. Yeah, it's just another day, just another cage. Anybody ever feel like they're in a cage? Alright, it's just another day, and just another cage. We got one more verse. If you hear anything, these words are for you. I know it's a cliche, you probably heard it before, but we are the ones we've been waiting for. This is our moment to shine and fly free. This is where we find out what we're destined to be. Can we open our eyes and free our minds? Are we ready to see and read between the lines? I give thanks every day, because I know it's our time. The moment we heal, because I can see the signs, the symbols, the people we are searching for. This journey's about finding out what's in store. And I don't got all the answers, but I know I'm free. This is the truth. This is what we're meant to be. The only thing holding us back is our shadow. Escape the dark, find the light, and you will grow. The truth is this: we are meant for cages. We are meant. I messed that one up. We ain't meant for cages. We are meant to thrive. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just another day. Just another cage. All right. I don't know about you guys, but I am sick of those cages. And to me, even if the cage is the size of Texas, it's still a cage. This is going to be my last song, guys. Again, I just released my EP called Letters to Myself today. You can find it at soundcloud.com/33 is here. We also got it on these USB drives if you want your own. And this my last song is called Till Tomorrow Comes. I don't know if any of you have ever felt this feeling where maybe you've been in a room full of people, hopefully not tonight, where you find yourself asking, how the hell did I get here? Who the heck are these people? This is definitely not my people, right? I had that happen a lot when I was using drugs. I was sometimes having fun, but most of the times there was something inside me saying, this is not where you need to be. There's something else out there, right? And even the people I was using with would say things like, you don't even seem like you're having fun. And I'd say, I don't know if I am. I just can't stop. But there were plenty of times where I'd be in that situation, hanging out with people and just like, nah, this isn't it. There's something else out there. This isn't where I need to be. And then someone would pass me a blunt and I'd say, whatever, I'll worry about that tomorrow. That's what this song's about. It's about that feeling of knowing you're not quite where you're at, but you're getting there. So this is my last song, guys. Thank you so much. This is called, Yep. This will be the last song. It's called Till Tomorrow Comes. And if you haven't got up close in my face, this would be the time to do that so we can get nice and intimate like me and this friend right here. All right, this is the last song, guys. Till Tomorrow Comes. Thank you so much. Appreciate you being here for the activation tour. We very much appreciate you. Let's do this. This is called Till Tomorrow Comes. Shit. Yeah. You know, I've been thinking about where I've come from and where I'm at right now, and you know, I don't feel as crazy as I used to, but I know some people are still in those places, so this song goes out to you. And I ain't gonna lie, I ain't even slept in a week. I've been too busy counting pills to be counting sheep. Recently, things have been moving fast for me. I'm swimming deep, no regrets, this ain't last for me. I got no time for flakes, cause I'm head and shoulders above the rest of these clowns trying to destroy what I love. Truth is, most days, I can't even feel my heartbeat. I'm just going through the motions, searching for the real me. Hello? Are you in there? Can you hear me calling for help? You know when you're in a crowd, I feel like it's just yourself. That's my daily battle, my power and my curse. But I won't stop fighting till I'm not feeling that hearse. Even on my worst days, I can't help but smile. Yeah, the struggle is real, but the journey's worth every mile. Yo, that's not to say that I don't have my dark moments. Sometimes I think of it in my life, cause it don't make sense. And I don't know if I'ma make it through the night. And I'm too tired to put up a fight. I got big dreams, not chasing crumbs. But I'll just wait until tomorrow comes. And I don't know if I'ma make it through the night. And I'm too tired to put up a fight. I got big dreams, not chasing crumbs. But I'll just wait until tomorrow comes. I've never been good at hiding my state of mind. Got no poker face, I'm just laying blind. I'm going backwards, we gotta do this right. I gotta go backwards. I gotta do it right for y'all, right? Y'all want it right. All right, we'll go back a little bit. Thank you guys for being here with me. We'll do that one again. I want to come all the way out here to Brooklyn and Prospect Park and do this shit, right? Make some noise if you're still with me. I appreciate you guys. All right. We're just gonna start it. Sorry, guys. We're just gonna start that one. I gotta do it fresh for you, okay? I gotta do it fresh for you. This is the last song. SoundCloud.com/33 is here. I really would love if you check out the music side of what I'm doing, even if it's new to you. To me, this is just as important as the books and the words, right? This is just another way to try to connect to your mind and your heart. So, let's do this again. I ain't slept in a week. I've been too busy counting pills to be counting sheep. To be simply, things have been moving fast for me. I'm swimming deep, no regrets, this ain't last for me. I got no time for play, cause I'm head and shoulders above the rest of these clowns trying to show what I love. Truth is, most days, I can't even feel my heartbeat. I'm just going through the motions, searching for the real me. Hello, are you in there? Can you hear me calling for help? You know when you're in a crowd, I feel like it's just yourself. That's my daily battle, my power and my curse. But I won't stop fighting till I'm not feeling that hearse. Even on my worst days, I can't help but smile. Yeah, the struggle is real, the journey's worth. That's not to say that I don't have my dark moments. Sometimes I think of it in my life, because it don't make sense. And I don't know if I'm gonna make it through the night. And I'm too tired to put up a fight. I got big dreams, not chasing crumbs. And I just wait until tomorrow comes. You guys got 2 more verses with you. Thank you for coming out here with us tonight. Thank you for supporting what we're trying to do. Please take something from this. Way too long to feel this loss. Suicidal. I've been feeling this way too long. Suicidal. I can't help but notice this third clears my mind. Maybe it's the key to happiness I can't seem to find. But now, if I was seeking clarity, I just need to go inside. Find some quiet space, thoughts with greater confide. And I feel like I'm losing my grip on this world. I can't tell if I'm supposed to be here with this girl. I mean, it feels good right now, but what about tomorrow? You're passing about my way, no time for sorrow. Anyways, what was I saying? By the way, who are you? I really hope I get to ride this high to somewhere new. Elevate myself to heights previously thought impossible. I keep making mistakes, but I'm trying to be responsible. It feels like things are going so fast, I can't keep up. I need a pause, my anxieties are starting to creep up. And I don't know if I'm gonna make it through the night. I'm too tired to put up a fight. I got big dreams, not chasing crumbs. And I just wait until tomorrow comes. I don't know if I'm gonna make it through the night. I'm too tired to put up a fight. I got big dreams, not chasing crumbs. And I'll just wait until tomorrow comes. I've never been good at hiding my state of mind. I've got no poker face, I'm just playing blind. It's hard not to think about everything I've lost, knowing that my pride and my joy, they were the cost. I really should start thinking about my failing health. Maybe start focusing on trying to build wealth. Are there really better days up on the horizon? It feels so bleak, darker days are where I've been. And I don't know if I'm gonna make it through the night. And I'm too tired to put up a fight. I got big dreams, not chasing crumbs. And I just wait until tomorrow comes. Thank you guys so much for being here. Woo! Y'all please connect with each other. Come give us hugs. Say hi. We appreciate you.
Max.